you can actually be a school, academy, whatever non-legal word. If you have that license, you can license anybody. You can license,
Mm.
like you are the school. You, as the architect, are the school, not the building, not the taxes or the institution. So us, like, we actually have all the power as.
Which goes back to what school should be about, which is it needs to help you become a good designer and a good problem solver. If you have those two essential skills, you can take those to any firm and be invaluable.
Thank y'all for the time. It'll be a start of many discussions.
Yes.
But here today, I've been trying to craft and find a true way to bridge that gap between the moment we graduate till now and beyond. But right now, we only have this experience. Each of us are 2 to 4 years out of grad school. 2 are about to graduate grad school. I'm only just out of undergrad, so both of us have grad school in front of us. And in this experience, there's just a lot of holes and gaps to fill, especially with just telling our stories and experience, because I bet as we go through these questions that each person was kind of on their own or more or less abandoned by school once that last check got cashed. And this whole thought started with trying to create a vignette of this experience instead of just focusing on my single story or Juan's or Tristan's or Gus's or whomever's. Let's distill these archetypal stories and explain to people the struggles, the pros and cons, and really just telling that story of, okay, boom, I've graduated, now what? Because at least for myself, I didn't have a job yet, and most of my colleagues also did not either, which is really dangerous. Like, I just left school with 40,000, I think, in loans, and just like I have no job lined up. And the few friends who did, personally, I didn't want that job. So trying to find, I was not going to invest all this time, energy, and money without something truly fruitful on the other end, besides they taught us a little bit of critical thinking. Because that we should be taught forever, not just by colleges. Mr. Cupcake Ninja is here. My ninja is here. What's up?
Hello.
Let's go.
Let's go. I am in a bit of an intro, so I'm gonna keep on rolling then. And I'm speaking on just that gap of knowledge and education after school, because it's clear, it's very clear, all of our bosses, all of these licensed people who've had this job for 3-4 decades, they know what's up, they know what to do, and they can only tell us by redlining some stuff, through us observing them. Like there's no true boom, boom, boom. Obviously, as all of us know, with every project, every building is different, but there are certain steps you have to take. And finding a job is no different. And all of us, like frankly, almost all of us were pretty good friends. I don't know what your life was like much after school, and because I was busy finding my own job, and it's like, okay, well, how did y'all do? You know, like, what was that experience like? And trying to view it from a more individual and archetypal standpoint, because there's so many different types of people that can and want and will go to college. The people who won't, most of them, it's because that thought isn't put, or it's not shown to them in a clear way. Like for myself, I was only in college because my older sister, she basically showed that way of, hey, you just go there, you show up and you ask some questions and then you figure it out, you know, which is life. And the whole point of this is to not complain about not being handheld out of school, but more so there should be a more concise pipeline of person who wants to do design, architecture, honestly, anything, any subject, but architecture is our realm. And there must be some kind of real pipeline from person who's interested to full-blown licensed architect. And it's all of these very fragmented things that leave a person pretty blind, and then we are all just repeating the same mistakes over. And so to try and distill this experience, my thought is to grab all of these different experiences from mine of how you got your first job, because the first one is always the weirdest, always the hardest, always the most unknown. And how was that done? Was it even in turning in college? Was it a friend, a professor? And that's its own thing, how none of our actual professors were licensed, and they couldn't even hire us and actually give us hours to become a licensed person, you know. So it's a whole education gap, yeah. And my first basic question is, how did y'all get your first job? What was that like? Keep it more in the how did you get it instead of what the job actually was. We'll get more into that, but the point of this is to begin to pull these stories out and to understand it in a more group setting what kind of experience was. And
Like explaining to an 18-year-old.
right. So explaining to a kid, you know, a person who might be interested, but the point of this is to then have a follow-up step and have actual more in-depth one-on-one interviews of that journey, probably from school, and probably even what got you in to school, like a more backstory, because people can just relate to those things more, because I had an uncle who did driveways or whatever, you know. And so I would like to go around and ask, I can call on a person, or anybody like to volunteer of how they got their first job?
Can I volunteer a person?
Go for it.
A logo is probably the most recent one of us who's got his first architectural job a couple weeks ago. You want to explain how that
I
worked
couldn't
out,
really
That
Logo?
wasn't my
say.
first. That wasn't my first job. You know.
Bro,
not
don't
first.
disrespect Strand like that.
Come
That's
on,
your
man.
Yeah.
first.
Sorry. Well, first actual architectural firm. Let's say that.
Gee.
Strand
Yeah,
was a
but I
little
haven't
different.
started yet, so I think I'm gonna let somebody go first, and I'll turn right
All
after
right, fair
that.
enough.
Okay.
I'll do it. But you just want to know how we got the job. Well, to put it simple, I knew a guy who could get me an interview because me and him were in marching band together in college. And he just happened to be, he was like a grade below me, but we were like cool enough that he already had a job interning. And so he said they were looking for people who could do full time. Since I was graduating, this was maybe a month before undergrad graduation. And so I was one of the lucky few who had a job coming out of school. And so I could go straight into the job, and I didn't have to worry too much about the whole not finding a job and not having money aspect, because I was about 60K deep in debt myself whenever I came out of undergrad. So that was pretty important. Wasn't the best job, but it was a good start. And that's another story we can go into later.
Right. That first job experience is so crucial.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I can go next. I think mine was also an undergrad. Right before we graduated, we had that, what's it called? We had the school thing with jobs. They come around and you
Job
kind of
fair.
go there, and yeah, the career fair. Yeah, so I got mine throughout the career fair. I didn't know anyone. I was looking very specifically for a firm around my school, just because I already knew that I was going to be going to grad school, and I would be using this job to pay grad school with. And so I kind of did my research prior to. I read about all the firms that were going to this event, and I knew the one firm that I wanted to work for just because they were about 15 minutes away from school. And that's who I literally did my research on, and I went there knowing that I wanted to work for them. And I think that was kind of the one up, because they said that about like 36 people had given them their portfolios, had given them information of, work they've done and their whatever portfolios, resumes, had given them all that information. And then I think maybe 4 had interviews, but what they said that gave me the one up was that I came there not knowing who was going to be interviewing people at that school fair, and I knew them by name. And I think they said that right when they saw that, when I came in for the interview, I was extremely confident. I knew what I was talking about. They basically gave me the job, and that helped me through my grad school. That gave me work to do. They gave me professional experience, some really good mentors, and my first architectural job.
Nice.
Wasn't it in the Texas Rangers Stadium? Or no?
It was in the
Yeah.
Texas Ranger Stadium, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
pretty freaking cool, bro. Like,
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
cool.
I worked on the Texas Ranger Stadium. I got to go all around that stadium and like see all the suites. I met all the CEOs. It was kind of wild.
HKS?
No. That was my second job.
Okay, because
first
we
job
also
was-
worked on the same stadium. So
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we
First job
were-
was no, so not the new Ranger Stadium, the old
Okay.
Ranger Stadium.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, we worked on like all the renovations to make it like the XFL football, and if any of the suite owners wanted to renovate their suite, we would be the people to do that for them. But
That's
yeah, it
pretty
was every day I would go into the Ranger Stadium and kind of hang out and watch baseball games from our
That's so
patio.
cool.
Sweet.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that's a pretty swanky pool, but it started out because it was the closest job. Like,
That's it.
was it literally the closest architect?
Yeah,
That's
it
so
was.
cool.
I by range. I went and I did my research on the closest firm, and it turned out that they were absolutely wonderful. I mean, very small firm, about 26, 27 people total. But man,
bad.
we had a lot of work, and I was the youngest there by maybe 30 years. But that's how you learn the most. I didn't go for the social aspect of it. I didn't know anyone there. I just knew that that was the best scenario for what my life was going into at the time.
Right.
That's very interesting because that's completely opposite from my situation.
What's
Really?
that?
What
Yeah,
was yours?
I'm very much like you, I think, in that sense where I want to plan out I want to have a plan. I've always had a plan. As a matter of fact, if I dropped out of architecture school, I had a plan for that too, which was military, because I knew I was fit, I knew I could do it, and it was something I was passionate about.
Wow.
But yeah, glad I didn't have to do that. The plan for me was to stay in Amarillo. That's where my family lives. You know, it was weird because I don't know. Thinking back on it now, that it's almost impossible to think that I could live that close to my family and have to deal with them all the time. But I love them. I love them. But you know, that freedom that I had in college would have gone away. And
That's so true.
yeah, and I also had no clue when I first was looking that I was about to meet my wife. I was single, and I was very much planning to stay that way. I had a lot of bad relationships, so those kinds of things kind of go together. But when I started looking, it was a career fair at Texas Tech, and we had to have like 300 hours to graduate with our master's of internship, and so I knew I had to do it either that summer or the next summer, or that was it. And I made this dumb mistake of only signing up for interviews with the firms that were in Amarillo, and because they were local, and that narrowed it down to like 2.
Wow.
And that was a very bad move. I didn't realize because I was overconfident. I did well in school. I figured, oh, well, I'll do well at this. I'll get the job. No problem. I did not expect them to ask me the first question, which was not what my name was, but how much did I know about TAS? So they were just looking for somebody to, I don't know, not design, but definitely not do what I wanted to do. They were just looking for someone who was going to do work and be a computer. That's fine. If you know that stuff, that's cool. But I ended up finding my job because out of sheer luck, one of my TAs that taught me from when I was a freshman in college was there, and she happened to be with our now CDO of our firm, looking for people, and they didn't have the time to interview me because they'd already filled up all the slots, and I was just there just because I knew I had to be there, and there wasn't any more slots available. I dressed up in my nice suit anyways and went to their little chit chat they had, and she just stopped me, and we talked for a second, and she's like, I was a good student with her and everything. She's like, have you interviewed with anyone yet? I'm like, yeah, but I don't think it's gonna work. And she's like, okay, I'm getting you an interview. I'm like, there's no more slots available. And she's like, I'm getting you an interview, but it'll be like, I guess it'll be online. I'm getting you one because I'm gonna want to make this happen. I'm like, okay, whatever. Apparently she went and told them behind my back that I was this like genius kid or something. I don't know what she told them, but that's what I heard from other people later on, and I kind of was mad at her for it. But and it got me the job, and fortunately they hired me back on after a couple of internships with them, which, yeah, we won't go into how all that was yet, but yeah, sometimes luck is just takes a little bit of luck.
Yeah,
Luca cut out.
I think he froze.
Bro, our streamer,
I think he was about to say
Oh.
something.
our only true streamer is
Pro
frozen.
streamer over here.
Our
I
pro
hope that when he
guy.
comes back, he'll be like, "That's all I have to say about that."
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, look, I
People
left. I
say
can go
something?
next, actually.
Yeah.
Oh no,
Froze.
we lost video.
Colorado down.
Yeah,
Ah,
yeah. My power just went out. So
Oh shit.
Y'all having a blizzard right now?
wait, do you guys hear me?
yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
hear
I
you.
can hear you.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say. I think basically that shows that you need to always be kind and courteous to anyone you meet within college because you don't know who later on in life will help you out.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, you're
Absolutely.
making a good point. That's
Yeah.
definitely correct. When it comes to me, especially because coming from overseas, not knowing a lot of people, if it wasn't through the connections that I had at UTA or even in the city, it would have been very hard for me to get a job. But everything started at the Carey Fair. I think I talked to so many companies, about 10 after undergrad. I wanted to work because I was broke. I couldn't go straight to grad school, and I was looking for a full-time job. But everything I was getting was summer internship. And I talked to about, I think, 5 to 6 companies. All of them was trying to give me internships, but it wasn't working for me. And I realized actually the more you get interviews, the better you get chance to actually get, find a job. Because I was so, I want to say too honest with everything I was, I wanted to do. I knew the company, I knew what I was, I was going to want to do, but it wasn't always working for me. For example, I wanted to work for exactly 2 years and go back to school, but all companies doesn't actually plan out that way. They want to have somebody that's going to be there for about 3 to 4 years. So if you don't know in advance, like what type of work they're trying to produce, and you come and say, I just want to work for 1 or 2 years, definitely not going to hire you. So like on the long run, I was always say, well, I'm here forever. I'm here for, for 10, 5 years, whatever. I'm here, I'm available, that's it. But I wouldn't give a time frame because, life can happen. You can decide to go back to school or not. So after that, I think 4th interview, I stopped saying to people that I wanted to just work for 2 years. And I started to say, well, I'm available for any time. Then I was going to make my own time, after, I'm actually satisfied with the job I had. And that's why I got to Strength, because I think Oregon was giving me a summer internship, HKS, but I didn't want an internship. So I went to Architecture Demarest. I don't know if you guys know this architectural firm in Dallas downtown. They didn't reply to me after the interview. And then I talked to Strength. And Strength was just all in. And that's how I got my first job. It's pretty good.
That was muted. Nice. So, was it hard to choose, or was the other place just not that serious?
In terms of what? Like between the different firms?
Yeah, like did they outright say that because you only wanted like 1 or 2 years?
It was based on what was convenient for me at the time. I needed experience and I didn't want to go to grad school without any experience. So it didn't matter the firm, honestly. And technically, United States is the only country with, the imperial system, right? So coming from overseas and knowing how architecture works there, like it's so different. So I wanted to have that experience no matter what, because I only had experience from back home and it was totally this, different story, working over here. And we don't even have like architectural examination the same way we do have over here. So I was just looking for, I was just trying to get into any architectural job, like the United States, that's all. But after getting into Strength, I think that's why I was able to understand, like how the system works here. It's very different from overseas. I just got to get adjusted to it.
Nice.
Yep. Now we can talk about the second job after that, because definitely that goes on with what Lucas said, knowing people, It's the only way to really get the job that you want. Otherwise, I don't know how it could happen, to be
Right.
honest. But you could be
Nepotism.
good, you can have a good portfolio, confident and all. But if you don't have good soft skills, talking to people, knowing people, like it's kind of hard to get there, especially if you want to go to a big firm. It's not easy.
So do y'all think that school helped to develop those crucial soft skills?
If I can answer to that, I would say yes, definitely. Because, like again, like I only made friends in architecture school. That's number one. If it wasn't through AIAS with Berlin, who was it again?
Isaiah.
Isaiah, exactly right. So they were really enforcing me to go and talk to people. Like, we'll have conferences, we'll just do, like some sessions sometimes. Like, it was through all those moments that I got to even feel comfortable talking to people. Because first of all, English wasn't my first language. So it was kind of hard for me to come and approach and, just be open to talk. That was from there. And then when the career fair came through, I already knew some of the people at Corrigan because through AIS, we went for a tool firm, with the AIS team, so we went for a tool firm at Corrigan, we went for a tool firm at HKS. So I met people there that I recognized at the job career fair, and that made it easier for me to connect with them, definitely. So through those systems, it does help. It does help a lot.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
That was a bit more surprising than I thought, and I think that's a pretty good second question. But back to the first, we haven't heard from Juan or Kush yet. Either of y'all want to go first?
I can go ahead and talk about my experience. So I ended up getting my first job after grad school. Grad school really wore me out. I was trying to take it easy after graduation. So, and give myself some time to like actually work on my portfolio, get that together. But one of my classmates, one of my friends from my last studio, she had a couple of recommendations for small firms that were looking to hire without the need of a portfolio. And they all they wanted to do was interview and look at a resume. The first firm she recommended to me was it was going to be entirely online. The guy was in Canada working on some hotels out there. I interviewed with them, with his partner. We got to the stage where they were about to set me up with their online system and all of that. And then suddenly I didn't hear from them at all. And then my friend didn't hear from them at all either because she was doing some work for them on the side as well. So that just went blank out of nowhere. And then she recommended another firm here in Dallas. So I went to meet with them in person. I talked to them, did the interview with them. I emailed back and forth with them for about a month and a half. And then from there, they had another architect that worked with them in their office, and they set me up with him. I had one last interview with them, and from there, I started working with that guy. Almost been a year now. So through that connection with my friend from that last semester of college, that's how I ended up getting the job where I am right now. I was, to be fair, trying to take it easy. So I saw this as a nice opportunity to just like get my foot in the door per se. And so far it's been working out. It's been working out all right.
Yeah, that's gotta be probably the biggest culture shock of all of us getting that grad school after, getting the job after grad school rather than in between. Because real quickly, but did you take a gap or go straight through? I forget. Straight through.
No, I
right?
went straight through. Yeah, I finished up with grad school.
With Juan.
That was
right?
back in there in the fall. Yeah.
Yeah, we took it together.
Nice.
Or I actually, wait, yeah, I graduated a little early though. That's why I was like, wait, who is that one person? But then I remember I graduated early, so I wasn't with you in that last studio.
Right. So, Juan, what was that experience like for you?
Well, for me, I mean, y'all remember me back in undergrad. I would work so much while going to school just to be paying college off at the same time because I was just raised that way to not inherit debt, honestly. So I actually graduated school without any sort of debt at all. So it was a good feeling, but also in doing that, I really missed out on outside of school things like AIAS and those relationships that I probably could have built if I had a bit more time outside of working and doing my schoolwork and classes and whatnot. But I didn't get my first job until after undergrad school, and it took a bit, honestly. I think it took me like a month and a half or 2 months of just getting interviews and not being emailing, getting interviews, and then just not receiving a call back. And it was mainly because everyone was looking for a full-time worker at the time. They were looking for someone to be full-time and be let them know that they're gonna be there for the long run and be able to crank out all the drawings that they needed. So it wasn't that I couldn't do that, but I was gonna be in grad school, and that's whenever the red alarms kept vibrating at every single place I interviewed. I even actually interviewed at BOK right out of undergrad, and they actually had me and gave me a good interview and whatnot, gave me the tour and everything, and I never heard anything back from them. So it's cool seeing how I'm working there now, but yeah, I just couldn't find a job at all. I was like, man, no one is trying to hire me right now. Like,
I mean, you say it took you 1 or 2 months. It took me about 6 months, I remember, even to find a job, because I had 5 interviews every month, like one every month. It took me a long time.
So did you have to get a visa?
No, actually, how the way it works is every time I get a degree, I'm granted a working permit, and that can be, I think, I mean, it depends on the time, but like for grad school, it's about 2 years. No, for undergrad, it's about 2 years. For grad school, it's about 3 years. But then you have the choice to get sponsored by the company if they want to, and they can give you now like a working visa. But when it comes to me, like I'm good right now.
Nice.
So if you ever like switch to a new company, is there like a grace period for that as well? I'm curious.
That's a very good question. I'm not sure. So you have a grace period. You have about 3 months to find a job. If you don't, you're gonna have to be.
That's tight.
Yeah, it's pretty tight. So you have to either be like working for free, like how you say it in English, like a volunteer.
Internship.
Like unpaid.
You can do internship where you have to volunteer somehow. And I was actually trying to calculate all that, that time frame. So I traveled. Yeah, it's called the OPT, the optional practical training. So I had to like travel overseas and come back, so I don't have the 3 months. Otherwise I was going to be out of status by then. So I came back to kind of like be eligible to still, like look for a job or something like this. And that was on my hand because I didn't plan in advance, before getting out of school. Like I literally started looking for a job, I think right after graduation. So, and I think that's not a good advice to even to do. So, yeah, that was the issue.
Dang. So
I don't know how I would have felt for 6 months, that month and a half, 2 months that I took.
Yeah, I spent the whole summer overseas. I came back and I started working in March because we graduated in May 2019, right? So I spent 3 months overseas, came back, then applied. Waiting for my 3 months, that's when I had all the summer, internship proposition. And everybody was already, I think they already hired a lot of people. So they didn't have enough space to hire another full-time, like staff. And yeah, I think I finally found a job in March. That's when I started working.
Dang.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
and because of that experience, that's why for my second job now, because I just got an offer at HKS and actually I accepted it.
Hey,
I needed to find a job before I get out of school because now I don't have trouble with 3 months grace period, because if you don't find a job, you have to go back home
Right.
or you just get on started, out of status. So that's why I didn't want to get in the same situation again.
Yeah, I can't
it-
even imagine.
Right. A co-worker of mine is from Hong Kong, and she got her permit, but then it came to be re-upped, and it's apparently a lottery system, and she lost and has to go back. So it's like and she
Oh,
found out and say, okay, you have like a month or so. Maybe it was more, but
Did she leave already?
her last day at our office was last week, and she's like taking a small vacation up the West Coast, I believe, and then heading back.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah,
That's-
and she's
Yeah, a lot of
excited.
people actually end up going to like Mexico to the embassy there, because sometimes you just have to get across the border.
Right.
So it doesn't count. When you come back, you just refresh the time frame that you have. And then a lot of people don't even have the means to do that. Like some people will end up going to Canada,
Mhm.
But, I mean, we're in Texas. I mean, I'm in Texas, so it will be easier for me to do that. But I didn't even, I went straight back home because it fell along with renewing my passport and my visa. So I did everything at the same time, so I don't have to get in trouble later on, But when it comes to like asking companies to sponsor you, like nowadays it's about 17% chance to even get drafted. So it's not really easy. It's not really an option. Like I had another option with Boca Powell, but I had to decline the offer because they said they were going to like sponsor me, but they were going to do so after 3 years. So they wanted me to work for 3 years first and then receive sponsorship. But then you never know what's happening in the future. Like you could have recession or inflation. Anything can happen, and people don't hire. People get fired and stuff. And at that moment, I have my back against the wall, so it won't be definitely pretty good.
Was that opportunity offered in Fort Worth or Dallas by chance?
Oh, that was in Dallas.
Oh, okay.
Nice,
I'm only familiar with their Fort Worth office.
nice.
Man, I feel so privileged.
Yeah, I missed
Yeah,
the-
same.
Yeah.
I mean, no, those are just normal. I believe it will be the same everywhere. If you want to go work in Dubai or in China, I think you're gonna have to, be respect their immigration laws.
Right.
I think that's just the way it is.
Yeah, it just is what it is. So, Miss Pane, what was your experience like? Pane, so how did you find that first job?
so I guess it depends on what you consider first job, because I had an internship, and then I later had a full-time job that fall or slash winter. So when I graduated from undergraduate school, I wasn't expecting to not go to grad school right away, even though I didn't plan grad school either. I was just graduating. And around that same time, Montgomery and I started dating. Like, we literally started dating the week before we graduated. Then I also knew that Kane was him leaving like immediately to California, because he was gonna move to California that August, but he didn't know at the time it would be August. He just said he was moving whenever, whatever that meant. It could have been like the week after or like a month later. I had no idea. So in the summer, I was just having fun. And so I graduated from undergraduate. I was just having fun. I had an internship that I did get because of UTA's career fair. The firm that I landed with, they came to the career fair. I gave them my name. They were the only one who called me. So then I had the interview. I only interviewed with one firm, and I don't know why. I was distracted, I guess. And then
Paying money.
and
Ruining
then I got
lives.
the internship. And so then I was only working 3 days a week, and I spread it out throughout the week. I was working Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I guess I could have put it together, but I did Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So I was off Tuesday, Thursday, and it didn't work other than that. Then Montgomery, he did end up moving in August, and we decided to be long distance. And I stayed in Dallas with my mom. And I still didn't plan grad school or work at all. Because I was enrolled in grad school, and I did go to grad school for 2 weeks. And then I dropped out because it didn't feel right. Like I normally am a planner. It's just like in some instances I go by my gut feeling, and if it doesn't feel right, I just drop it. And so and when I say I didn't plan grad school, I was enrolled, I was accepted. I mean, how could I not be? It was the same undergrad. I just didn't plan like the financial aspect of it. But even so, I did sign up for an apartment. And that actually was pretty terrible because I wasn't enrolled in school. Like I said, I went for 2 weeks. I saw all the syllabuses for all my classes. I went to even the second class, maybe even the third class. And then I decided that was it. I was done. I just wasn't feeling it. And the reason for that is because I also was like, this is just going to be a repetition of undergrad. So it was the same school, the same professors. So it just didn't feel right, especially after like knowing, because I've been just exposed to so much. My dad's in the military. I lived in San Diego, Dallas, Lufkin, Chicago. I've been to Japan to visit my dad. So I just was like, there's more out there. I'm not gonna continue something I already did. So when it came to finding the next job, that was a struggle because I also dropped grad school suddenly. I was still paying for an apartment I never moved into, and I had to find a way to get someone to replace it. I was unemployed and living with my mom, and my mom wasn't the nicest to me at the time, which actually motivates me more because she would tell me things like, why did you go to college if you weren't doing anything with C? Which is brutal, but that motivated me to like prove her wrong. And so in the midst of all this, like I did go to several interviews. I was reaching out to people that I saw had already graduated and worked at firms, just trying to get a lead somewhere, on top of just applying endlessly on LinkedIn, on other, like Monster, I forget the other, Job Indeed.
There's so many.
I was applying everywhere, and I was getting to like a desperate time of just, I had savings, but my savings were running out. It was already November, so I was like, okay, most people hire in the summer or spring, and it's getting closer to holidays, so that was concerning. But eventually, Montgomery told me, hey, Brady said they're hiring at Strand. So I reached out to Brady. Brady told me to apply somewhere, and then I went to the interview, and it seemed to go well. They just asked me like what my experiences and or how much education I got, how much I know, and maybe some ambiguous question about architecture and residential, which that ambiguous question actually gave me a lot of like hope for this country, because they were like, or this company, because they said, like, what do you think about residential design in America? And I was like, okay, this is gonna be an innovative company. But then it turns out I was just doing things for developers.
Brutal.
But
Man,
once
I
I
didn't
was
get
there,
that
I was still
question.
happy to show up there and see like 5 others from UTA there. And then
Yeah,
I
it
was
was great.
there. I was hired like November 2019, so like 5 months before.
Yeah,
Well,
before
even like less than that, 4 months before COVID. And
Yeah.
then I worked from home for like 2 months, and then I was laid off. And then I was unemployed again for 5 months, or even almost like a year probably. But this time I moved to San Diego, and that's where the end of my first experience was. I guess like from what I learned from my first experience is, I guess you can see how things can get quite political, like in terms of how you need to be on people's good side, and if you aren't, you're like punished. And it can get quite messy, and it's just kind of that that's what I learned. But I also learned very useful skills, and I had never really used Revit before in a professional setting, so I learned quite a bit there. I learned how to be efficient, and yeah.
Stake the landing.
I mean, that's crazy because Brandon didn't even. I interviewed with them too, and they didn't even hire me.
They didn't
either.
hire
And I'm
you?
like, dang,
Oh,
nuh-uh.
I thought you
That-
just
that-
turned away from it.
Nuh-uh. I'm telling you, I felt like Vanessa said, I felt punished in a way because I was like, dang, no one wants me because I'm going to grad school, and I'm like, I'm trying to get smarter for y'all
Good.
guys. Like,
Right.
it wasn't a.
No. That's
Yeah, it
actually
was-
true because, when I interviewed with Strength, I told them I was going to grad school. And they told me straight, no, you can't actually, work with us because it's going to be very tough. But regardless of that, I reached out to them the weeks after and I said, hey, you know what? I'm not going to go out of grad school no more. So I think I'm ready to work. And that's how they took me. Because if you remember, his name is Helvey, right? He was going to grad school at the same time as he was working for Strength. That's what he told me. And he said it was really hell, couldn't handle it, and he doesn't wish that for anyone. And I was like, if you did it, I can do it. It was like, nah. So
Crazy because they have part-time positions, but maybe they were just cool on that.
Yeah, they told me they only wanted full time at the moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, I literally only had one. Well, my first job, that was the only firm that actually accepted that I was going to grad school, and they just took the shot. Even them, because there was actually someone with experience, already licensed, that was going to get the position I was going to get. And they're like, well, we actually like you as a person. Like, they had 3 interviews for me. 3 interviews. And then they're like, you know what? Like, you seem like a good guy and you seem well educated and whatnot. And so we're just going to roll the dice with you, honestly. There's this guy that's licensed. He's, we were thinking about hiring him, but we're just going to go ahead and hire you. And it was crazy. It was like this miracle out of nowhere. But
Right.
yeah, like Vanessa said, I felt punished in a way because everyone kept saying no, and I was like, dang, I'm just trying to work and get educated at the same time.
Right, like if they only knew how many hours you pulled in undergrad. Like I was even
Bro, yeah.
speaking last week about Matt Juan. I don't know how he even was awake because he would go to work on the weekends, but then work till like 2-3 a.m., come in at 3-4, and then just be there and bust out one of the best of class.
Bro, yeah, I don't.
It was wild.
Uh,
He, do,
I
he
killed
does all
myself.
his sleeping now. That's
Yeah.
why.
Yeah,
he
true.
goes home at 5.
Right, exactly.
I
Yeah,
saw
he
that
deserves it.
Quinn,
Smart man.
Quinn did something similar, but she.
Bro, yeah, Quinn was insane too.
Yeah, she was. I even asked her if she even slept, and she said sometimes.
Yeah, I remember Quinn would tell me she would work 70 hours while going full time in grad school. Grad school.
At what job?
She was doing nails.
She was doing nails, but she would make bank off of it. She was telling me she was making like pretty good bank. She was like, I don't know if I really want to leave this job because I'm making
Right.
this much money. I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't leave it either. But she
Right.
eventually started getting into it after grad school. But it went pretty well. But she was, yeah, working 70 hours sometimes.
Dang.
Yeah, and then she did like the fast track at grad school too.
Wow.
Yeah, she graduated with me, I believe. Yeah.
That's wild. And like to me, that's totally counterintuitive to the entire purpose of education. Like first you have to pay for it, but then you have to go to work and earn and spend way more hours than one would just studying on something else completely. Because as I've been hearing, only one of us had a college internship, and that was only in the summer. No one worked during the semester, right?
I know.
Tyler, right? Or no?
I actually, well, no, I didn't work for a firm. I worked
Right,
I worked
right.
on campus. So
Right. I mean,
I worked for a firm during my master's.
so
Oh, yeah, I did too for my
yeah.
master's. Yeah.
Masters, you have enough skill or really time management. Because I remember in Hosers, to like cut some paper and glue it out, it took us like all day. And it's like, bro, it's just paper. Like, what are we, and
Took
now,
us 20 times to get it right.
right.
Bro, that
and-
Cubist model.
Oh yeah, exactly. And now all of us can bust out probably multiple sheets a day of constructible drawings that other random people can pick up and build from. That's a big leap, and I feel in undergrad there should be some more incorporation with the money side, the real aspect of it. And the more I ask the question of why we don't, because for instance, every person in MBA school, their main thesis is to start a business. It's like, yes, we design buildings, but we don't actually go through the whole process. Often they have to actually sell products or services. We get right up to that point of it being really hard, the permitting and the building, and we stop. And the selling, and then we don't actually learn that part. And hopefully your office has an open floor plan so you can actually hear other people work, but that's often not quite the case. And I'm just like pondering how to actually, like, is it more design build or more
Is that who I
Mr.
think it is?
I and
Bonkers.
Mr.
Yeah,
Bonkers.
Mr. Bonkers, welcome to the chat.
isn't the squad. How we living?
Good,
Just
good.
in time for the
California
Yeah,
dreamer,
just
my boy.
in time. Whoa, looking
Bro,
fresh, bro.
turn the camera back on.
bro. Can you turn it horizontal at all,
I think so.
like last time?
Can you
No.
turn it off?
Whoa, you got a new haircut, Brady.
I mean, he's not wrong.
I'm always square, brother. I'm sorry. I don't know how to fix it.
Can you turn like rotation on or something?
Do
It's
you
all
own a
good.
computer?
Yeah,
No,
bro.
I'm on my phone.
Yeah, kiddo computer.
You're good.
Negative, Ghost Rider.
How's the Mac doing?
The Mac is beat. It is not thriving. It's
I thought so.
it's a college computer that went through the works. It could probably run League still, just out of pure memory.
Hey, let's go.
You know?
Matters.
So
What's
you
worse,
are
the
just-
penis mobile or the Mac?
Wait, do what?
Which one's worse, the penis mobile or the Mac?
oh,
Definitely the Mac. The penis mobile is driving steady. She's on a straight line trajectory of the same spot she was at in college.
She's cleaned up now.
Honestly,
so
she
that
just got
matters.
inspected. She passed. Per usual.
she passed inspection?
Always.
still got-
Holy crap.
My shorty always look good to the
Where
government.
do you go?
Those
They
illegal
say, damn,
inspections.
this Hyundai bussin'. This 2012. I'd be like, that's what's up. And they'd be like, damn, you ain't got a radio in here? And I was like, nah, man. I find peace in
What
my
about the
car.
knobs?
No knobs.
Well, money isn't in my car anymore, so I get to maintain all my knobs.
What
Are
about
you
that
getting
side
new
window?
cars?
PTSD thinking about money being in my passenger seat. Just being like, hey, dude, do you realize your seat covers come off? You know, I can just take the head of your chair. These seat belts will unscrew if you have a screwdriver. He'd walk into the studio and just hand me a hubcap and be like, it was easy. You better be careful. Caught you slipping again.
That's only
Looking out
a
for you,
little exaggeration, but
Bro, I'm dead.
dead.
You getting a new car soon or no?
No, I have no intention. I'm going to drive my car until she blows up.
Bro, it's free.
What's mileage?
It's at like 189,000.
Oof.
Something
Oh, you're
crazy.
good.
Keep
Yeah,
pushing.
she's chilling.
I
Keep
got
pushing.
you one better. Mine's at 240,000.
Ooh.
My man's good.
Or
man.
F-150. I've
Those-
been keeping this thing alive longer than I've known my wife.
How much of it
God.
has been replaced?
How much of it?
Yeah.
I've recently cracked open the engine for the first time to replace some stuff in there. But so, I mean, I've done the AC all myself. I had to learn all of this myself because I'm broke. And haven't ever really gotten unbroke. So,
Right.
yeah, I don't know. I probably have.
I don't
Yeah,
think
that's
that's
one
the
thing
reason.
that-
I'm sure you're just curious and you want to do stuff by yourself and learn. You know,
That is the
you're
other
just taking
thing.
shortcuts, yeah.
I don't like
Yeah,
trust
right.
when someone gives me a price, and that's true for
Yeah.
contractors as well. Like,
Right. But Brady, you are just in time. Every person has answered, and it's a very basic question. How did you get your first job? Just how?
Oh, Tristan and I's origin story was almost the exact same. We were sitting in studio, and then one of the juniors. What was our boy's name, Tristan? I can't
Fernando.
Fernando walked in and was like, "Hey, who wants a job?" And I like jobs, and he handed me essentially his boss's business card, and that was Strand. And then I showed up to Strand, and they were like, "You got thumbs?" And I was like, "I got good thumbs." And they were like, "That's what we're talking about."
I think
It was a
I think
production-oriented
that's how it
job.
actually went, though.
I was really nervous, actually. In all honesty, I mean, I brought my portfolio in. I wore a suit.
You own a
Was,
suit.
was
You got
super
weird-
excited.
yeah,
was
you got
like-
stares from everyone in the office.
Yeah, it was an awkward culture, work culture too. So it was kind of strange. It was very production-oriented. So there's not a lot of camaraderie and joy in that building. And just essentially got to it. I mean, it was great in the sense of it taught me the professional programs that our profession uses, and then it taught me about how to put an architectural set together, and then from there, I mean, you just get a ton of experience doing construction documentation, and then you basically know how to create a catalog that documents buildings.
Right.
And that was the first one. I mean, the first one was nerve-wracking. I mean,
Right.
I was never very good at going to the I never really trusted my resume. I had a terrible resume from like,
Wait.
My first-
You were nervous?
yeah, like
get
going and talking
nervous,
to people
bro?
at like job fair. Of course, we all get nervous.
No, but you.
He forgets his rooster sometimes. That's
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be getting super geeked, you know. But yeah, no, I too get nervous, Bonnie. Pretty nervous, you know.
That's just
So
fun.
just
But,
for clarity, all the Strand people here, like in sequence, I think I was the first of us to join Strand, Brady, you came after me like a week later.
Yeah, I started a week after you. A logo was like 6 months. Yeah, Vanessa.
Vanessa was in maybe a month or two after.
It was like
I think we were probably there for
November,
3
I
or
think.
4. We were there long
months
enough to
after.
feel. Yeah, we were long enough there.
November or something.
Because when I came, you guys were already there. Vanessa was still
Yeah.
there, and
Logo was
Guillermo
late.
too.
Yeah, we had a
Guillermo
small-
was there too.
by the time
Guillermo
you
was
guys-
before me, actually.
But I was the last one standing because everybody left after. After I came back from COVID.
Amen.
So
Last one.
it was so
Great.
boring, man. Like
I was
2
I
sick.
don't
years is the
recognize
average
anyone.
lifetime of an employee at Strand. 2 years.
Yeah, somewhere like this.
That's the healthy amount, at least. There's people there for over 10 years, and
That's
you could tell that they were just
wow.
beat down.
Yeah, that's gotta be soul crushing. I mean, I'm finding now that maybe I've been out a little too long, so I'm helping my dad on that project, and I was more turning the plans into, or from diagrams into actual plans. You want to know the thing I started with? Unironically, I started with the bathrooms. Like, that was the first thing I did was
Hey,
bathrooms.
plumbing.
I mean, it is important, but I was like, this is a schematic design. I shouldn't be questioning, do I need every is down to the calculation. No, like so my job is very technical. It is design as well, and I actually have the job now is the job I got out, but I had like a year or so break because COVID, and so this is in interior architecture and design firm that really just does bars, clubs, restaurants in LA. My boss has been at it for 3 decades and has built 500 places, and just really is on it, and I'm trying to just pull out through just observation. And there is, in my firm, it does feel a lot like a studio. We don't have classes per se, but my boss will hold court basically and go off and make a very crucial point, and all of it comes back to the role of us, but it's all in the real world, and it's all with just how it is right now. And he's great at it, how it is right now. But I think all of us can agree that how it is right now, all of us aren't quite chasing that exact same structure. I mean, it's partly what all of us are here now. Like, it's much more about trying to find something new rather than just repeat the old. And my story is one of just complete unknown, and I basically decided to move out here the fall of 2018, just before graduation, and then we started dating the second half of this semester, more official, like at the end, and like I would have left immediately. Like I was only month at my place, so I was like, I can just leave whenever, and I was probably gonna be gone that weekend if like I had no reason at all, to because also I had no firm job waiting out there or here, just my dad out here on his at his job, and I had pushed it and finally I'm like, okay, I have to move, because it's like if I don't go, hey, what's up? But I'm pretty sure I was still driving from Pizza Hut after graduation. Like, yeah. Like, I was like, hey, I'm moving.
It's a fun job.
What?
It's a fun job.
After like 6-7 years, it got old.
Bro, y'all never brought us pizza.
Yeah, not once did y'all ever just bring anything for the boys.
Well,
Y'all would get off work, y'all would come in smelling like pizza. Y'all would bring like 4 bags of Parmesan, but no pizza.
True.
You guys know I was doing DoorDash between classes. Like you
smelling
had,
like pizza.
I think, structured class from 9 to 11, and construction started at 1. So I was doing DoorDash between 11 and 1 and coming back straight. I mean,
Brutal.
that was the hustle back then.
Brutal.
I did
sounds
the
terrible.
Uber Eats at 1 a.m. because I couldn't sleep during school, obviously. So on the nights when I didn't actually have anything, I would just do some Uber Eats like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Soothing.
grind, and I don't know if it's like the most beneficial for learning.
No.
Yeah. But so
Do you guys think you made the right choice?
Oh, Brady.
You said that pizza delivery isn't
Luke
the
asked
most
the
conducive to learning?
what? Sorry,
Maybe if you're learning like another language through the car or something.
Shut the fuck up.
right.
This is like if you go serve in
So
Spanish communities, you can pick up Spanish while you're driving.
Bro,
Wow.
get a
But-
bigger tip from the Spanish people.
right, but that is a great question. Did we make the right choice with the first one? I'll roll through my ending up of the first question and open it up to that, because I think that's a very interesting, because most of us, because most of us are beyond that job. So was it right? But so for myself, I moved out here, and then the very night I moved out to my dad's, we drove from Texas to here, both of us. And the evening I got here, he and I are smoking and drinking, and I am told, hey, I got an offer that I can't refuse, and it's in Dallas. And this whole time he'd been kind of telling me about offers like possibly Miami, possibly LA, possibly just like once you are on that borderline principle, you are headhunted and people want you, and then some person is like, hey, here's an offer without an interview, and then you go through like 3 or 5 interviews, and then there's an actual offer, because you also can demand certain things because they want you. It's like, why would I leave my job now? It's a big hassle. On and on, you know. And so I found out that he is moving in 3 months, and at that point, I had spent that summer doing what I called the Google Maps method of going on Google Maps, typing in architecture firms, design firms, interior, and just seeing what pops up. And then, do they have a website? Is it good? Is it cool? And I emailed literally every person who had a website in LA. I found them all, and talk about feeling just stonewalled and
I mean, like the first week we were here, I helped, well, I didn't really help Montgomery. I just knew he was moving soon, and then he told me a date, and I was like, I could join, and then we went, and that first week, he looked really down because he hadn't found a job yet, and then on top of being told this news that his dad was not here, like the next day, I was only in LA like 3 days before I flew back to Dallas. But the next day, we went to downtown LA. We went to Culver City. We went to like 6 firms a day, like knocking on their doors, seeing if they'd even open. Most of the time, they were like, "Look online and
Right.
apply there." And that's where the conversation would end. And so, like, he was doing this for 3 days, and after that, like that, I'm sure that that's what he continued for like 3 months before you found your job.
Right. And just like casting out that big net of who's going to respond. And a few did also, I caught a few what I really call practice or courtesy interviews meeting. It's more of an interview, but my first in-person interview was a person who actually told me, hey, we aren't hiring. We're like 4 people, because this was just around the corner in Newport Beach, and just a small boutique firm. But he was like, hey, I can tell you need help because I also put Pizza Hut on my architectural resume. And he was like, bro, you gotta take that off. Like, no one cares. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, just having it. That's it. Like, just don't have a typo and have it. Like, but I have no experience. And then he showed me his. It wasn't even a resume. I forget what they call it. It's not a VC. It's
CV?
even more, or a
CV?
CV. No, it was like a project list basically of like, hey, here's everything I've done. Like, and it was like 5-6 pages, and it was all just line, boom, 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 boom. No pictures, which is a poor way to show architecture, but it's more drown them with data. But he was great on giving me feedback, and just that first hump of, okay, I got through it. I'm not as nervous. It is possible. And even having a dad as an architect, I got a few interviews with people he had worked with. It was like 3 or 4 firms, and it didn't go past that first stage because every answer, it wasn't even, oh, you are going to grad school. No, it was, you have no experience. So what are we going to do? Like, we have to teach you everything? Like, they didn't quite say that, but they let me go through the process, which it gave me different types of ways people did interviews. Some just kind of were quiet and opened it up to me, and I just went through my design portfolio because they know I have no experience. So it's like, okay, what am I thinking? And how am I showing it? How am I saying it? And do they understand? Because those are the crucial parts, because if the idea is not taken from my brain and passed into every single person, then it's pretty much a failure. Even if the building ends up great, there's just a lot more obstacles, especially if people don't buy in. But so I got these random, not staged interviews, but like after the first one, I could tell like they actually aren't trying to hire me. There was just a vibe about it of like it just felt like they're being nice rather than like, oh, so what can you do, you know? And then I emailed my boss now, and I was like, hey, are you hiring? And he was like, hey, come in. And this is a smaller 10, 12, maybe 14 people at times max office, and it's all pretty open plan, so every person can hear almost every meeting, every interview, every Zoom. Not to the point that it's overwhelming, but if you want to pay attention, you can. And you can hear people speak about budgets or whatever, design, on and on. And I come into this interview and I don't even remember saying that many words. He was telling me what they were. And then told me flat out, yeah, it's impossible to really tell. So they had me do a CAD test, which is the only place I had actually test before any job. It's basically, can you take this piece of paper, this basic plan with basic as-built dimensions on it, and then make it in CAD and make it official? Like, can you do that? Because that's the basis of our job, because all of our buildings or all of our projects go into existing buildings. So all the as-builts must be perfect. And they never are, but you can only come so close in error, because like an inch or two, that's not crucial, but like a foot or two, you know, that can swing a lot. And so I started there, and that was like 3 months of my first job experience, and then COVID hit, and then every restaurant in LA closed. Every investor was like dark. So a few stayed around, but they even moved moved into the realm of marketing and graphic design at times. They stayed in architectural firm, but they had to scramble, you know.
So Brady.
Thanks, Brady. Always the most professional. Bro.
All right. Don't mean to cut you off, but we actually have someone in the chat on Twitch that commented, Funk Boy Fresh. Shout out Funk Boy Fresh, but he or she said, well, I'm guessing it's a he, but Arc School sucks at connecting to industry. Industry only cares about the experience, and there's very little emphasis from the school to engage with the industry as a student. Kappa is in a great position to set up work programs, expand on design build, engage with the local market, etc., but they often miss the mark. Interesting.
Some good insight.
Yes, I
Yeah.
agree.
Y'all agree with that, or y'all have
Yeah,
any
'cause
comments?
Oh yeah,
on that?
definitely. He's making a good point.
I feel like
I think
as
it's been
as
shifting over the
architects-
years.
Sorry, I feel like as architects, like we're just as skilled as doctors, but doctors have like 8 years of training. They have to shadow people. Their school set up programs for that. I'm not saying our education should be 8 years. It doesn't have to be, but there has to be something more than just theory in college.
To your point, though, you're right. There's 2 points I'll make on that. First is, and I told this to my students when I taught. I told them this on the first day, just as a warning to them. Google the most sleepless major, and Google the hardest major. Both of those answers, typically in those years, was always architecture. I still believe it is. And you know, because I didn't do those things. I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't change my mind once I set my mind, but that's beside the point. The second thing is that, so with the fact that we are sleeping so little, you know, we may only put in 6 years, but our 6 years is more like other people's 8 years. I mean, I roomed with, a very short story, I roomed with 3 engineers. One was astrophysics, one was electrical, and one was mechanical at one point in time. So it was kind of like Big Bang Theory. We were just a bunch of house of nerds. We built lightsabers together. We did all kinds of cool stuff. But at the end of the day, I never saw them, even though it was my house we were living in, because I was the one that was always at the architecture building. They got to go to sleep. I didn't. And so it comes down to it. Yeah, we put in a lot of effort and not a lot of return out of it. And even when you get the job, you're still going to make, a quarter of what a doctor's going to make. And you have to accept that, because the last time the AIA updated that was 2021, January. We've had 14% inflation since then. So even if you get a raise right now, by the time July hits, your raises, it's not a raise anymore. So,
Right. All of us.
Yeah, and I think.
are-
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, like, I've talked to some of the architects, right, at my current firm, and basically what you're saying, it's like, you work your ass off, and then you have to be okay with not earning shit for 10 years. After 10 years is when you'll start really making good money, right?
yeah.
But you have to be okay with putting all of that effort in at the forefront, and even throughout those years to make yourself to get to that point. Versus me having a friend who, got a business degree, had all the sleep he wanted in life and in college, and now is making 6 figures. Like, it's incredible what we've gone through, and then what I see him doing at his business firm. And it's what we do, just for funsies. It's like he does some design work for them and makes some boards, right? And that's what we do all day with other stuff. So you really have to think about, and that's kind of where my question came from prior to, is, do you think you made the right choice? Because it is a life choice. If you don't love it, then you're going to have problems, right? Because you're not going to be making the money that you would want to make if you hate your job.
Right, I agree with you. And I think the one thing that I have to tell myself that reminds me, that keeps me in it, is that I'm not going to be making money off of other people producing stuff, but I will be, and I may not make a lot of money in my life, but we're not guaranteed a whole lot of time. And also, there's a good chance that something I build, there's going to be thousands of people using it in the lifetime of that building. And it's going to hopefully last, at least a generation after I'm gone. So if that is enough, I can live with that. Like, that's just for me personally. But a lot of people won't go through that,
I don't know. I feel like architecture school, it does a really good job in and of itself, vetting out. I mean, because what y'all are all saying is very true. And in some sense, it's going to be true for all the professions except for finance. Finance gets to it pretty quick in terms of money, but it's a money profession, so it makes sense that it produces money. But I mean, I think architecture school in and of itself, like especially sophomore year, like once you get past drawing classes, or I mean, it's hilarious when we were in freshman year and you would talk to people, and then you would have spent, I don't know, I mean, 3 or 4 hours on a drawing, and you wouldn't feel like you did enough on it, and then someone would pull up with like squiggles, like they clearly 35 minutes before this class tried to put a drawing down, and then they'd be like, God, I can't believe how much we're expected to draw in art class. And it was like our only assignment was to draw this apple in incredible detail. And like, I can't tell if your apple's a pear or an orange. And then they would be like, I just hate this. And they'd be like, oh, I mean, but this is all we're going to do. And then by the time you hit sophomore year, and then they're asking us to pull all-nighters without asking us to, oh, actually McDonald explicitly asked, he'd be like, you better be here.
Don't sleep.
Don't
You
sleep.
better quit that job.
Yeah.
So
This
Ian,
is a real project.
Until Friday, that's enough time if there's no sleep. And then he'd laugh, and then he'd kind of just leave us with it, and we would all giggle. Wait, he's serious. He
Or,
laughed.
y'all remember that one time we all simultaneously threw up that morning coming into the lab?
I forgot about
Bro,
that.
we literally all threw up and we just stared at each other and we're like, dang, we're
sick.
beat.
That was-
But I mean, I also don't think. I think you can press the. I mean, as you gain experience and you start to get a few years in, I find architecture can have a very comfortable pay, a very healthy work-life balance. I think that's something generation's really starting to bring in is to just be like, I mean, I have the option, I can work 40 hours, and then if I work more, my firm personally, it rewards working more than 40 hours. So, I mean, that's a nice bonus, and it's not demanded. I mean, it's a matter of go through the grunt years, just like, I mean, because even doctors, they have to go through residency. They don't make it in residency. They have to go to school for 6 to 8 years, paying $100,000 a year, and then they have to go get taught for 4 years where they're not making any money. So they have to be broke for essentially a decade before they really get to go, oh, I'm making all this money now. And then even still, a lot of them have to spend the next 4 years paying off their debt. So they really do put in like a 10 to 15 year investment into this skill set. In the same way, once we're all 10 to 15 years down the line, we'll all have all sorts of building types, all sorts of assembly knowledge, code language, and more of an intuitive and wisdom feel, in the same sense of when we were sitting in a meeting with Monty's dad and we were discussing a budget with him. He immediately knew from the budget we gave him of like the style of building we're gonna have to build, the quality of the building, just by the sense of it's a low budget building and it has to be done in this manner for it to actually be feasible for it to get built. And it's like that's a wisdom to it that you aren't ever gonna know intuitively. And Sloan put it nicely when it's always been one of my favorite things I've remembered from architecture schools. He told us in a lecture, and he goes, there are no child prodigy architects. He goes, it's too complicated of a major, it's too complicated of a field to just be a genius at it without wisdom. And it's funny because even when we're studying, every time they talk about an architect, they're like, this architect was 65 when he got their skyscraper, and it was a very big deal. Or they'd be like, this guy was 57 when he did his first. And you start to like, even all like your favorite architects are doing things in the latter part of their life. And it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, for me, I love the fact that what we do is we make things up in our head and then eventually it exists. And it's like, it's like, that's the difference for me of like, and I understand if I did finance, I could make more money, and all those things. But it's like, I knew at least I wanted to be doing something creative. And although architecture isn't always creative, there is a large part of it that I'm always problem solving, which goes back to what school should be about, which is it needs to help you become a good designer and a good problem solver. And if you have those two essential skills, you can take those to any firm and be invaluable. Like there's nothing better than an employee for a firm that they can just hand things to and then to ask you to run it through, whether it's making sure you design a parking garage and then going through the code language about parking counts and then knocking out all the nitty gritty that can be done in those things. And those are the small design things where you get to, it's like I get to design it and it's not a sexy part of the building and it's not the main thing people think of. But when you go stand in it and you're like, this hallway functions really well and I did that. Or like, dang, that trim on that conference room looks incredible. That was a good spec. Like all those kind of things. Or the color in here is bussin'. You know?
Awesome.
Okay.
Hey,
Right,
we got a
no,
comment, but don't want to stop you guys. Oh no.
Oh no.
He has to change his
This
batteries.
happens like 6 times.
Okay.
What?
Don't worry about it. You'll get used to it.
2 or 3?
Yeah, Brady, no, I completely agree with you. I would say to be at peace in the field that you chose, because I think we all went into it because of, the creativity and you have to actually use your brain aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the firm matters an incredible amount. I worked at, I don't know if I should name the firm, but who cares?
Let's leave it.
Don't.
No. Okay.
We're live.
Don't?
What if-
Okay, cool. Well, I worked for a firm for a while, and I would say that the projects that I was doing there were incredibly important, and they were in the field that I wanted to work, in the architectural field that I wanted to be in at the time. But the firm culture at that office was just incredibly, incredibly unhealthy. And that, to me, took all the joy that I had collected, right?
Yep.
Throughout my prior job and throughout all of schooling. It just took it away, right? And I think you have to make that choice in this profession because you're in it for the long run, because you love what you're doing, right? And we're not really in it for the money at this point. You have to really make the choice, like, is this job treating me well? And if not, then make sure you have the proper time management skills in the future to get out of it, right? You don't want to be stuck in something that you hate because it will kill you, right? It will it'll just make you unhappy. So I think everything that you said is correct, but the job matters so much. And that's kind of what we're talking about now. Like, your first job might not be, everything you've ever expected, right? But you'll learn key components of what you want to have in a job. And the second one might not be it, but maybe a third, right? So the more you progress, the more you find your jobs, the more you stay in that life, at one point you're going to understand what you want in a job and what you need to ask for while in that job interview, because they're also looking for you most of the time. So you're valuable. Don't forget that.
And it's interesting now. I don't know about you guys if y'all have experienced this. I think once you get into working life where you're kind of doing what your parents do, which is get up and go to the office Monday through Friday. I think like the monotony of doing it, and then the task of putting in that 40 a week, it's something that for me at least, I mean, it's something just in general, like existentially, you have to decide like, why am I being productive today? And it's like, well, I'm being productive today because it's what I always do. And then sometimes you just have to answer for yourself, like, what is that drive and what is that motive? And it's like, at that point, you just need to find a way. For me, it's like, I always try to tap into the fact that I'm just naturally competitive. So then it's like, well, be better than yourself, be better than you were the day before. And like that, for the most part, can just perpetuate. And then when it comes to firms, I think you're exactly right, Luke. It's like, get some experience, but you do need to go talk to other firms, especially if you're not like absolutely in love with your firm. It's like, it'll be very important for anybody getting into the field. Once you've gotten a year or two, once you've gotten comfortable with the role and fulfilling the duties that you have at your first firm, take that professional skill and knowledge you have now and go talk to other firms, because you are a talent and they are recruiting you and they need good people. And if you strive to be productive and good and find that healthy balance for yourself, there can be a lot of reward for us.
Absolutely. I think part of that balance too should possibly be, you should have at least some vision of what, whenever you find the firm that you're in, whether it be your first, second, whatever, where you're going to go within that firm, how you're going to move up, what that looks like, and why you're going to do it. I know some people I work with that knowingly will move up only solely because out of the motivation of like, they just want power, but there are also, for every one of those, there's like 10 people that are like, no, I have a skill that I've always had, or I've spent years in school crafting, and I'm really here to just see how far I can push it. And if that means I go down design, or I go down the CA route, or whatever that looks like. If at the same time, if you're in a firm that doesn't, you get the vibe that you're not going to be given that opportunity, you got to really start looking elsewhere, or figure out, what's your game plan,
Because that's an interesting thought line too. It's like, that's something school definitely could touch on, but they really don't. It's just project typologies, and really there's an extreme difference between project typologies. And I mean, because really all we do in school are like specialty custom buildings. We're doing museums, we're doing acoustic buildings, theaters, maybe you do a skyscraper, but they really don't get into, I mean, the only commercial one we did was for, what was our boy's name? He taught the late night class, made us do a comm check for the first time.
Nelson.
Wait, y'all actually did a comm check in studio? That's awesome.
Yeah.
No.
Not in studio. This was one of our professors who actually ran
environmental conservation study, something like that.
I don't even remember what he was talking. It was a cool class, but he was the first one to be like, "You guys know what a comm check is?" And he made us do comm checks and window openings and like opening percentages. And he was like, "This is how we do commercial buildings, baby."
Yep.
Everyone hated it.
I respect that so much.
He gave us like AutoCAD plans, or he gave us drawings. We had to produce them in AutoCAD, then produce a comm check for him.
Yeah.
That
was our final. He's like, if you guys pass the comm check, you pass the class, whatever.
Yeah, he did.
Watch, you're just doing his work for him, like.
No, that's other.
He was like, "Yo, do a good job." Well, he might have. Then again, that was like half our. That was always my issue at school too. Sometimes you feel like you were a teacher's assistant, helping them
Yeah.
with their.
Their
Or
next release of their publishes. Yeah.
Alright, I don't mean to cut y'all off, but our boy Funk Boy Fresh, shout out Funk Boy Fresh, he commented again. He's like, I think ultimately there are two levels of discrepancy: academia to industry, and industry with respect to itself. Academia wants to attach the theory and concept, which is fine and important, but it needs to bring it back to reality at some point. Industry, on the other hand, doesn't give itself enough respect. We manage the whole process and take the smallest cut.
Wow, big swings, big swings.
This is a topic
Shout out
that
Funk Boy
I keep,
Fresh.
I keep seeing it go around that architects are not extending themselves as much as they should and as much as they have in the past. And because of that, we are getting a smaller cut than what we're used to.
Exactly.
And guys, I'm telling you, Professor Meta in grad school is like way up here compared to Meta in undergrad.
Oh, cool.
Just for reference for other people, Professor Meta, he
Shout out Meta.
I think he has a degree in structural engineering and architecture, and he's written a whole textbook. Yeah, he's written a whole textbook on construction and architecture or something like that.
No, he's
But
got multiple.
basically, oh yeah,
Yeah,
has
he's got multiple, yeah.
and he makes us buy it for his class. It's hilarious.
No,
It's
bro,
not his
bro.
fault, but
One of our CAs was reading it today. I was like, boy, that's Meta's book. And he was like,
Dude.
shout out Meta.
it's supposed to be one of the best resources for when you're taking your exams to get licensed. And it's a really good book. I mean, he knows how to talk in our language. I know in his structures course, he was losing us a bit. I know, Brady. Structures is a rough course to teach architecture students.
At 8 in the morning.
Yeah. But his construction course was a lot better. But anyways, he was telling us he'll go on these rants and he got really passionate about, back in the day, Le Corbusier and Frank Lloyd Wright, they were doing their own structural analysis for these buildings that they were doing, whether or not it was the most accurate thing. They still had leaks in their rooftop monitors or whatever. They still had some kind of deflection happening in the falling water. But at the end of the day, I mean, they took more ownership of that project, and
They were pro.
Now recording.
things were a lot different in terms of build. Oh, great, we're
Are we
recording.
barely recording, Craig?
Yeah,
on,
but
Craig.
it'll be fine. I have the audio
Gotcha.
and video someplace else, but I'm just
So
yeah.
on the same topic, I keep seeing this I follow a bunch of these architecture news article things on Facebook, and there's this one that keeps popping up that says architecture are less vital nowadays than they've ever been, or something like that. And the article's about how we aren't as involved as much, and we're taking such a low cut. And this is one of the things that Meta was saying is like, nowadays we have to hire the acoustician and the lighting consultant, and we have to get interiors is it's an important field in its own, but like back then, these architecture greats that we all know they had everything under their belt and they were working to satisfy each one of these things. But nowadays, the question is it even feasible for the architecture firm to handle all these elements when our buildings are getting more complicated, when we're asking higher performance for these buildings that we're doing, especially with sustainability issues coming up. We're trying to get these facades down to a science, and unless you have a facade guy in your firm, you're going to need to hire a consultant to make sure your building is top of the line. So it's a tough tightrope that we're walking, in modern day architecture.
Yeah, but I mean, I disagree with us losing any relevance. I think we're so integral to the process of knowing all the dots to connect, and then also making sure that all the pieces. We're so important to spinning all the plates, because if we stop spinning the plates, then people just go quiet. You know, engineers will let things be. Design tasks get muddied. I mean, and it goes to your point. Buildings are incredibly complicated now, and then also code is a lot more rigorous than when those people you mentioned were building. You might be. It was easy for them to
even a thing.
Yeah, well, exactly. Them to be like, oh, you can't hold me civilly. You can't hold me liable. But now it's so easy to hold somebody liable. It's like, hey, you didn't follow these procedures written in code, and now you have. I mean, because even just talking to, like, you have liability insurance for every person. So as the architect, I'm already incentivized not to take liability for things that I don't want to take liability for. If I'm not an expert in fire protection, I'm not qualified to do that, or structure even. I can have an intuitive sense of structure, and that will make the structural coordination simpler, and it'll also make just the building more practical when you have to get into it by just having an intuitive idea of structural principles. But at the end of the day, if I design something that I think is complicated, I mean, of course I want to punt it to the design professional in charge of that, whether that's the civil engineer doing my site drainage or a structural engineer telling me how I should span rooms. I still think we're absolutely integral to the process, just because as the process gets more complicated, we become more necessary. Now, in regards to fee, I think that's just us competing. I mean, I think that's just capitalism going to work. I mean, it's silly in the sense of, like, real estate agents get bigger cuts than us when they sell our buildings, but I think that's just the name of the game. And I don't know if we can necessarily just hike up fees unless you are somebody that's developed enough work to where you can start to turn down work. I mean, supply and demand for it.
That was in response to us dividing the work up even more and having more consultants, because that comes out of our fee. Well, it doesn't come out of our fee specifically, but the client is going to have to consider that they need a lighting consultant, and, you know, instead of us getting a larger cut of the budget, now we have to consider that as well.
Right. And all of this is just what all of us are currently caught in the cobwebs of, and it's really what we are trying to warn, let people know, hey, there's all of these processes out here that we don't even know yet, that our bosses might kind of hopefully know, but even then you come to it, you still have to be at that counter submitting that plan for approval, or be in the field and be like, hey, this thing doesn't fit, what do we do, you know, on. And all of these aren't talked about enough in school. But the thing is, not talked about, whatever, that's school. Anyone can give a lecture on how to build a house or to build anything, but the experience of doing it, to know when I draw these lines what it actually is, and should it even be wood or metal studs? Are there other options out there for just the standard wall? Like, what's the point of even a wall? And all of us are ascending into having enough stuff, because it's so true that you just have to have the experience. Anytime my boss is asked a question, he always references some other time that this kind of happened. You know,
Yeah.
my previous boss had a great phrase from his boss, which was, or his old boss, which was, being an architect is determined by the amount of oh shits you've had. I'm like, oh shit, I forgot, oh shit, you know, and like, oh no, you know, like, cause like, oh shit, I drew this, it got completely engineered, it got completely budgeted, it got completely ordered, and somebody just missed this.
I actually got a really good example of that happened recently for me.
What is it?
Our firm does mostly education, and we. Now I feel like I'm going to be liable for this. So
It wasn't me. It wasn't me. It was him.
no, you weren't here yet. I was when I got hired on. I already did 2 internships, and so they knew me well. They liked me. They hired me on full time, and I immediately went to our most profitable project we've ever done in our history, which was a high school that was $270 million, which was bigger than any we'd done. Most of our big projects are like 100 mil, maybe. Those are big, but the mid-size are 50 mil. This one was huge, and we had to break it up into teams and groups so that we had like our best people in the firm covering this building. We had like 20 people at one point, out of like 200 people max. And so, anyway, I'm working on the academics portion, right, with one other person. And this person had to leave the firm because of their own circumstances. So that happened at the very end of our construction documents going out. And me being not a project architect, not licensed, not knowing, everything in the world. I didn't have enough oh shit moments yet. I missed the fact that we had somehow not put any fire extinguishers in our side of the building. And,
Who needs those?
Let alone, right. Not just to meet code, but like when you're having one of the biggest high schools in Texas being built, you're going to need those. And there was like 16 labs in that portion of the building too. So I didn't realize how expensive, fire extinguishers were and how expensive it was to get the hardware. Just think about the mount, just the mount alone. Like you've got a metal case, right? It's got a hinge, that's hardware. 2 hinges. It's got a latch, that's another hardware. It's got a receiver to that latch. It's got all these different components, glass, and then I was like, words on it, on the glass. All those little bitty things you don't think about in school at all, ever, because let's face it, school is just SD. It's just schematic design. And, if even, yeah. And so yeah, all that added up, and that's on me. And I couldn't deny it. That it was obvious. The whole team knew it, and so I just owned up to it. But it was like, I'm never going to forget that ever again. Like, because I'm not paying for it, but the owner is. So when the comment said earlier that we get the smallest cut, that's incorrect. It's the owner. The owner is getting to deal with all of the shit, not just the portion that we're dealing with or the one engineer consultant was dealing with. They're dealing with all the shit. And every mistake you make, every mistake that your consultant makes. So, and they're not getting paid for it. They're usually the ones who are rallying everyone to pay for it. So I think they're getting the smallest cut out of it always. But yeah, there's definitely things that are.
It depends on the project, because
sure,
like a high school, yeah, that's not going to be cranking out any kind of revenue. But even a very packed restaurant, it'll be paid off in a matter of a few years,
That's true.
And even like apartments, the standard practice is paid off in a decade, and everything after that is just cash money. And it's not like they drop rents after a decade, but if that was more closer to standard practice or what have you, but often they increase them because they come through and then they just renovate, but it's only really for tax purposes because they had no revenue, rather than it being out of the kindness of their heart to make the best place possible. It's what's the cheapest flooring for these 40 units? You know,
Monty, I'm going to interrupt you right there. Zaha Hadid had the hardest hitting album of 2024. No, I'm just kidding. Hey,
Wait, didn't she pass away?
yeah, she's dead.
Bro, yeah.
I was just kidding.
R.I.P., dude.
Hey, I'm heading to bed, y'all. I'll talk to y'all later.
All right, man.
All right.
Bye.
Peace. Y'all have a good night.
Yeah, bro.
seriously.
Well, can you ask the
Birdie.
question again?
What was that?
Did you ask did you ask what the price was?
Of what?
Sorry, I guess I missed it.
Oh,
I missed the last part. I'm sorry.
I forgot what
We just got another comment, so I was.
I guess one thing I want to ask her, bring up to the chat, is the word respect. Did we respect ourselves as much as we should have, even during school? Like, was this mindset instilled into us that we have to be the ones that do this? We are the ones that are gonna change the world or make it a better place. Were we kind of instilled in that way? Not saying we were turned into some zombies or something, but like, was this kind of a mentality that architecture has and still has? And is there a way to change that?
Yeah, so I feel like, I don't know about other schools, maybe other schools are different, but UTA, I feel like they instilled fear in us. So, like freshman year, I joined this class or this kind of program called FIG, which is abbreviated for Freshman Interest Group. I signed up to be a part of this because they told me I would be in a group with people in my major, that by joining this, I could even room with some of them somehow, and that we'd all have the same classes. So I was like, okay, why not? Like, then this might make it a little easier as someone who is a first generation college student. So I signed up, and in that, one of the required classes, so the only class that was really unique compared to other freshman class, which everyone took this class, but I took it with the people in my group, the fake. Everyone else took this larger class that's known as Cheryl's class, but I took it, and that class was taught by senior students at UTA that were architecture students. And basically they had told us like, oh yeah, it's very unlikely you're gonna finish. Only like 4 of you will graduate. Just like almost everyone in that group graduated, by the way. But they told us yeah, like, I mean, I do believe it.
That's
I
rare.
do believe the drop rates are pretty high in architecture school. I have seen like in my other classes in architecture that most of those people did drop. And maybe for some reason my group ended up being lucky and all of us were super competitive because most of us graduated. It was maybe like the class was 30 people. Maybe 5 to 10 people ended up not graduating with us. And some of them even came back and just graduated later. But I just didn't like that. I didn't like that they told us that, and they were like, oh yeah, the second year they call it weeding out year. And I was like, what? Like, this is just like the place we start? I don't know. My parents had never gone to college, so hearing this, I was like, okay, I guess like I have to fight harder than everyone here to be here. And it just felt like it was very fear-based. And then even when I went on to second year, my professor literally would, so this is very unprofessional, but, and I won't name this professor, but he kind of organized his studio to be sort of like democratic in a way, where we all vote or like kind of vote for the style of our presentation, which is fine. I'm not disagreeing with that part. What I'm disagreeing with is that he was a bit unprofessional in that he chose select students to be his favorites. And I
Wonder
was
who this is.
definitely in the favorite group, and he would tell him our group which students he was like thinking that we're gonna drop, and he would like tell us like, oh, by the end of the semester, it's only gonna be like 10 people left, and he was like, and we'll get more studio space. Like he was so happy about it, and then once like there was a drop date at UTA, I think it's like November 2nd or something like that, for the studio.
Yeah, it's
Once
like 2
that
months
drop
before.
date passed, he was a lot nicer. So it just like this sort of toxic dynamic just makes it really hard to get through the semester. It doesn't feel supportive. I feel like okay, yeah, it might weed out people who maybe were gonna drop out anyway. But at the same sense, it doesn't promote positivity, creativity. It doesn't encourage people to find new limits. It just pushes you to just take it and do whatever it takes to make it to the other side. It just felt very toxic, and that's just my opinion. I mean, that's just like the weeding out process. I'm not saying UTA as a overall, because I feel like UTA did promote some other good things. They definitely have a lot of variety and range that I felt that I had a lot to learn from other students as well as my professors. Everyone was pretty much, once you got to third year, it was like, okay, the creativity's here, everything's fine, but it's just like that weeding out process was really brutal. It's very discouraging, and it kind of even crosses over into the industry.
Right. I even kind of knew of the difficulty, or at least how many people might drop, and actually came into college or UTA at 22, so not 18. I had 2.5 years of associate credits, to transfer in, but I still had to do all 4. So I was like, I'm just gonna wait and see who's left, and like make friends like then, because also I was not fresh out of high school needing a new group of people. I still had a group, so I was more like, okay, I have to really focus on this myself, because also a positive of school is it was the first thing I really focused on that intently for that period of time, and then got at first a drawing out of it, and then 10 drawings. And then, well, it was actually almost all drawings, right? But drawings and models, but really ideas, and pushing it and exploring it and testing it and speaking it out with others and trying to explain it. And then they'll say something, and then, oh, yeah. And then have some other random thoughts. Like, where does that come from? How can that be replicated? Like, because I can only think what I think, and I honestly, I only like it so much. Like, I need other input. Even if I hate it, I'm like, if that person really believes that, that's really interesting. And it's gotta be valid on some level, and that kind of feedback and like pushing, and that I felt school helped, but I didn't feel that really translated into our jobs now, of the like soft skills we need. Because I'm not like critiquing my co-workers' facade, or I mean, like, not really, because also I'm restaurants, bars, and clubs. It's like you're getting a storefront. It's gonna have some shit on it, but it's like, it is what it is. Like it's windows you want to see in. So it's not that crazy. And I'm trying to find a realm to push this discussion towards like juxtaposing our jobs now with school, and I think all of us speak to a part that's missing now, but also was missing then. And how do y'all think that very design heavy school, this SD, with that other very technical aspects, and that's probably a following question because I actually rambled on over Juan's question of do we or did we respect ourselves enough in school? What do y'all think?
I think, I don't know, for me personally, I was kind of that guy in school. I respected myself a lot, and I respected a lot, or I expected a lot from my professors too. And my classmates. I expected the world from everyone, and when they didn't live up to my standards, I let them know. I'm that kind of guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think having that certain respect for yourself and like knowing when you've done all you personally can in the time frame that you were given to, and to defend that versus having someone walk over you is a very important skill set, even for the professional life, to have, right? Being able to understand where you are, how much time frame you were given, and working with that to the best of your abilities versus doing all you can and then being shit on and just taking it. That's just my kind of experience. And like, I'll kind of refrain from like talking too much about school, but I kind of want to agree. The professor that did that, we obviously all know who that was.
What's up, Taylor?
Yeah. Honestly, like, definitely not professional. Would not recommend that for anyone. But at the same time, I think like that was just like their strategy to get the people that think this is just an easy field out of the way, which I don't think is a good way to do it. But it is what it is. UTA is a business, right? And even if people are failing, they need them to pass to get their money. And I think that's the problem, right? There were so many people in our field that deserved to fail, that deserved to be let go of the program, and that just weren't, right?
Amen.
And then the people that just didn't believe in themselves enough, gave themselves that enough respect, they just left because they were scared, right? And that's incredibly saddening because there were some people that I saw extreme potential in that left the program.
Right.
And then there were some that stayed in the program and just didn't do anything and, put the least amount of effort in that passed, which is just crazy to me. And I think that's kind of what Juan, a good question of like, do you think you gave yourself enough respect? I think, yes, some people did and some people didn't. And quite a few that should have just left because they were scared.
Right. Especially in a field that is qualitative, not quantitative. Like, we aren't asked in our final to do this perfect calculation. It's more of like a dance. And it's like, was it kind of good enough? Okay. But, Gus, did you respect yourself enough in college? Or even not?
So for me, that might be a bit of a tough question, honestly, because I felt like, if I'm talking honestly, like I felt like throughout the entire time I was in college, I was giving myself such a hard time about my projects. And sure, we had the professors that talk shit about them, but then gave us some really good critiques. And then I would move on and take those critiques, try and build up better. And at the end of the day, it seemed that most of my projects came out good or fine, good enough to pass. But I was always down on myself. Like I felt that I could do better, but I wasn't satisfied with my final results. Like no matter how hard I tried, I never really got like the perfect thing I had in my head, I never materialized it. And like so to some level, I think I lacked some of that self-respect, depending on what the semester was. If I felt I did a good enough job that I'm proud of the project, or if I failed myself, but I somehow just managed to cross the finish line. And the biggest example of this would be our last semester of undergrad. Our professor did, I think he did a good enough job of providing critiques to most of us. He again talked to some people more than he did others, but again, that's a mixture of him not caring for a lot of the students, and also him knowing who actually was putting the time into and who actually deserved the critique. And at the end of that semester, I felt I had a good project, but I stumbled at the end and I didn't really get what I wanted out of it. And I felt inside I felt defeated. But at the end of the day, after the final review, after all that, it was fine and I made it through. But
Wow.
until now, I still feel that I'm struggling with that respect thing, because I know, and according to professors and according to grades and according to critiques, I know I have the potential to do good. But it's ultimately up to me to be confident in my work and understand that it's important for me to be confident in what I'm doing and project that outwards. I think I'm not sure if I'm putting this in the right words, but that's kind of what I think.
Yeah.
It's a bit difficult, but
Right.
I'm doing what I can.
Right.
Yeah, and that's where anchoring yourself on your purpose can get you through those hard times of doubt.
And what is that purpose that can carry us? And like, what is that highest good? And often it's just overcoming that fear itself, that thought, that feeling that can just be so gripping and so like, oh, that sucks, bro. Oh, that sucks. It's just like, well, I know it sucks, but I'm trying. Come on. Like,
Yeah.
so,
You know, go ahead.
well, a question, it's a bit open-ended, but what do you think, or do you know what might have helped you? Is it like the timeline or the structure or like the politics of the professors or the student dynamics or the building itself? You know,
Yeah,
like,
I think that I have to own up to my own shortcomings and be aware of that, and like better prepare for stuff like that. Yeah, like if I can get over my own hangups about my skills and all of that, I know I can perform efficiently and like produce a good enough project and be proud of what I produce. But there was points in there where like I just produced what I produced because it was as much as I could do, and it was like, it was it was like we were up all night and all of that. And it's like, this is as much as I can do, and it's due tomorrow or whatever the fuck, whatever.
right.
But
also,
at least like in most cases, I know that I did the best that I could, and I was showing my intent in the presentation and the work. But there was those certain instances where I knew that I could have done so much better if I had better used my time or better grasp the concept of everything.
Right.
Would it be fair to call that in itself an oh shit moment? Because you're never, because at least from that point on, you know what that feeling was, and now when you're going forward, you know how long it takes you to do something, or how quickly you have to get your concept down, or because I've experienced that feeling you're describing with a client. And I gotta tell you, like, it was one thing experiencing it in school, and then when you experience it with a client, like, the sucky part of that one was that I did put in the work and they just didn't like it. And that was like kind of a crushing thing. Actually, Juan helped me with that one. It wasn't your design, Juan. It was mine. They thought it was too similar to the original building. But they liked me still, so it got through. The soft skills helped, so those lessons helped, but and that gave me the opportunity to redesign and go forward. But in school, you don't really always get that time to do that, because of the semester, the way that the whole thing wraps up. I've had some professors that were really like, yeah, okay, if you can, for the final review, you didn't exactly have everything, but like if you could just, have it by Monday, then you still get the grade, and that's great. But so maybe it's more like, when it comes to respect, I feel like what we should be asking is like, did you put in effort that was respect worthy, or are you just dissatisfied? And I think maybe we're integrating those two words a lot. Do self-respect versus, because you can still have self-respect, you can still learn, and you can fail. I think school taught us indirectly how to fail, but they didn't really give us the tools to emotionally handle that and to how to process that. They certainly didn't help with that at my school. How to move forward when you do fail. That's something that, because you're gonna fail. Like, even like in my case where I tried hard, I thought I did everything right, and they just didn't like it. I was never prepared for that. I was, if you had your work at my school, you did great. Like, that was it. Like, because getting to that part's hard enough. I don't know. I think that learning how to fail is an important process that they kind of maybe didn't really think about. I think you're muted.
Or they force us to fail over and over and over, and completely ignore us completely. Small follow-up to Gus, like, that feeling through school of, man, this just isn't good enough. Of course, we all must own ourselves, of course. We're also a part of a pre-structured system that's supposed to take into account that we are young people who don't know and might have these bad thoughts. And, like, do you think that school, with it being 99% neutral or negative comments, played into that, I'm not good enough? Like, or do you, like, take it like more was you? I mean, that's like a bit personal, but like I'm just like to the structure of school itself, like I affect you.
I mean, that even continues into the professional realm.
Yes and no, but I.
Yeah, I would say it like with the professors in the classes I took, it's a 50-50 thing. With the one specific professor, it was 100% sure, 100% he was being overly negative with the entire class, so much so that I argued with him and walked out in the middle of him talking crap about everybody's projects. I was not having none of his crap at that moment, because he knew he was failing us. I would say at that point, he was the one failing the class. But on the other hand, I would say that that yeah, it's a mental state and something that you slowly throughout the years in school you harden yourself and like, okay, it's just a critique, it's nothing too bad. Yes, I failed this time, but I can do better for the next critique. And okay, I'm improving. So just depending for me at least, it would just depend on the situation about how how much that how much I felt that I was behind, I guess, on what the objective was and how helpful the actual critique was. I would say that it's fair to say that most of the time the critiques helped and I was able to reach a point in which I felt satisfied with the final results. And to be fair, I am fairly more critical on myself than I should be, but I guess that's one way of just making yourself strive extra hard to do better.
Right.
I think that's one way to put it.
Interesting. So, all of us experience those lows, those no sleep, the what the fucks, the oh shits, like in school, and now like it is a bit more paced out, still probably more intense because there's more on the line, but it's slower. And like school, they actually spend more time on SD than most like firms do on bigger actual projects, which is, and students still complain about the lack of time. But in those like trying times, like it, in like most of us working two jobs or just staying up forever or just being brutalized every day by professors, what like pulled y'all through? Like, what made y'all want to keep pushing, and what was pulling y'all through? Wanna?
Yeah, I want to start. So, yeah, around like third year. So second year, I did a lot of all-nighters. At one point, it was probably, I don't want to say every day, but multiple times a week for all of second year. Then by third year, that kind of caught up to me. I struggled a lot and I almost dropped out. But it's funny, the struggle was behind me and it was really like third year wasn't too bad, but I think maybe the lack of sleep affected me mentally, emotionally, and I would say that, yeah, it almost drove me to drop out just for my health and to get better. But I didn't. And the reason I didn't was actually because I think I found my purpose in architecture through taking other classes that I knew I was interested in that was within my major. And because one of the things I really love is history. I also love art. So in third year, I decided to take more history classes from Holiday and hearing her lectures. And honestly, because I feel like when you align yourself with your passion and then surround yourself with people who are passionate about the same subject, it just incites something out of you that brings out a new perspective on why you're there. So for me, taking those classes that were, because obviously I loved architecture. I was there already for 2 years, kind of 1 year for the studios, but I didn't want to leave. I knew it was something I was interested in, but I just didn't know where to look or what or how. And taking the history classes and hearing about different perspectives within that made me realize that, well, one of the purposes I want for my long-term career is just to represent my Latino community. That's something that's very important to me. I feel like knowing that has made me more motivated to push past hard times, because I know that I'm lucky to be in this space. Not everyone is in my space. I'm probably one of the most educated people in my family, and I know what kind of backgrounds my family has, what stories they have, and how architecture has even at times failed them. So due to that is why that motivated me to continue, because I already made it farther than everyone else in my family. So why not go even further into something I'm already passionate about? Because my voice in this industry matters. And I see things that other people don't. Maybe my vocabulary is not so elaborate. I am bilingual. My family, they're not really educated. My mom dropped out of school 6th grade. My dad only got a high school diploma. So my vocabulary is not very elaborate. And plus, they were mainly Spanish speakers. So at times it can be easy to put myself down and think I'm not deserving of this space. But at other times, I'm like, no, I know what I see. And I know that when they're building that, I'm thinking of people like my family who actually use that building. And just because they don't have an architecture background doesn't mean they don't know if the building serves them or not. So knowing that side of things and knowing what I know now, I like to combine the two and see what I can do with that information.
Were you actively thinking about that in school?
Like, no, it really wasn't until 3rd year when I took Holiday's class, and then she explained some of like the urban design, and I took both of her classes. I think it was Life of Cities as well as Landscape Architecture History. And in those, she described different scenarios. And plus, we had our own reading assignments, and I chose topics I was interested in. And then that's where I learned even more about the impact of what we do.
Right. Right. So what is and was muted, Luca? Like,
Yeah. I was just asking, what was your like intro question? I'd forgotten it.
oh, in the trying times of school, or even now, like what did or even does push you through as that purpose, that higher goal to stay like, why didn't you give up? You know, like, why'd you push through? Because like half the people dropped. Why not you?
Yeah, I
Way
personally
more than
never-
half.
Right.
Yeah, definitely more
Well,
than half. But I
you
personally
graduated.
never. I personally never got. No, you're fine. I personally never got to the point of even like thinking about dropping out. The only class that I ever dropped was a civil engineering class, which was.
I
like,
forgot you were
coding.
doing that.
Yeah, because I started as architectural engineering, and I passed one engineering course like my first semester, and then I took another coding class, and that was just miserable. But like as for the actual architectural experience, I don't think I ever got to the point of wanting to quit or drop out. But I think I kind of answered that in the chat.
Yeah, the chat got a little fire. Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to
Oh,
crack a beer
yeah.
in a second.
That is live.
Right.
Hold on, let me read this response real quick.
Yeah.
Right. It's a result of poor planning. And I think that's what like led me to understand what time management is, right? In high school, time management for me was I knew in high school I wanted to be in bed at 10 p.m. every night. And that's just because I had choir the next morning really early and my voice needed the rest, right? It was just a practical sense. In college, it was more in college, it was more or less I didn't want to do all-nighters, and quite honestly, I mean, I did quite a few, but I wouldn't say I did nearly the amount that quite a few of my peers did. And I think that's just because I knew what I wanted to get done, and I had conversations with the professors about where I was at and what I was going to be bringing to them at a level of thoroughness that I wanted it to be. And I think having those hard conversations, even though you don't want to with a professor, but like if you pull the professor aside, you're like, hey, this is my schedule currently. Like I have this A, B, C, D going on, and I would like to give you all that I can, but I think these 3 things are the most important for my project to bring across what I'm trying to do.
Right.
That is a skill that I think is immensely helpful in college and also in the professional world. Like the professors obviously don't know your projects through and through. They don't know where your head's at. And I think being able to explain to them what you think your project needs to really develop in a way that can bring your point across to whoever's viewing it, that's the skill that saved me from even thinking about wanting to drop out, because everything that I was working on, I knew was helping me fulfill the idea, the thought process that I had in my brain, right? And it was the one thing that just gave me joy. It was being able to tell the professor what I wanted to do, and they couldn't say no, right? I mean, here and there, they obviously gave critical feedback of what they think would help, right? But they could never really say no to anything that I would put in front of them, because it just made sense, right? Logic. And from that, the time management came. From that, no more all-nighters. From that, the stress was gone. Granted, like here and there, I really had to crank out because I wanted this, and this done. But overall, like I knew what needed to be done, and that resulted in sleep-fulfilled nights most of the time.
Interesting. So did you already have that time management skill, or when was that crafted?
I don't know really. I mean, I kind of always knew what kind of worker I was and how good I was at certain things. So like, let's say if I needed to crank out a rendering, I relatively knew how much time it would take because of second year to fulfill whatever style modeling I wanted, or I knew how long it would take to do some diagram work that I wanted, because I'm relatively quick with diagrams, so that obviously wouldn't take me all day. And I think from there, knowing how well you work and knowing your pace with certain things, because I'm slow with A, B, C, D, that'll take me a little bit more time, so I'll leave that for whatever, the weekend, and really just work hard over the weekends. I never took any time off because I wanted that sleep. So overall, yeah, maybe in high school I learned a bit of that time management, but in college it really clicked, because that engineering class that I dropped out of, man, I can't tell you, I've never been the person to plan out like time-wise, schedule-wise of what I needed to study when, and that class destroyed me. And that's when I knew like, okay, failing is good sometimes. Like I said, it didn't impact my career in any way, but taking that ridiculously stupid class with a friend of mine, with my best friend actually, he's in med school now, he also took it and we both dropped together because it was just not for us, right? And through that class, through the failure of me going in there, taking this electronic test next to this fucking wizard kid, he finished in relatively like 15 minutes, told you right away what you made. He made 100. I finished, and I kid you not, after this test, I knew it wasn't for me. I got a 14, and I studied my ass
Dang,
off,
bro,
right?
you're the ones that they give them what's it called, the
Curve.
curse for?
Dude, I don't know. I don't know what it was, but I gave that professor, I gave him my drop slip. And what people don't know is my dad teaches at UTA too. He's an aerospace professor for senior design. And he was like, oh, you're Dr. Chidoba's son, aren't you? And I was like, I am.
Great.
And I'm dropping your class.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
funny.
you know, through that whole experience, that's where I learned like this really matters. Like knowing what you want to do, knowing how to talk to people. That's just kind of that's what brought me across that curve of like, there's no point to drop out because you can tell them what you're going to do, and you can tell them you're going to do it in a good way,
But
versus
also,
trying to get.
Did-
Yeah.
uh,
Can I just say I
Yeah,
fully
yeah.
agree with how you've worded this. I wanted to ask two things. Does anyone else know how many all-nighters they've pulled when they were in school? Like have the number? 0? Well, you're
0.
Oh yeah. No
I
wait.
know a lot of people like
Oh,
that, by the
yeah.
way.
I was
a lot of people
close.
who did do 0 and they
I
got
was
through
close,
just
but I
fine.
never.
I was doing it all the time.
yeah, all the time. I don't know, all the time.
Yeah.
I personally
did
brought
like
a cot
5
to
one
school,
time.
and I would sleep under my desk.
Jeez.
Yeah,
So
that cot
Okay,
is
there-
saved.
We actually
I
found there
slept
was
there
an
too.
insulation mat in my second year. There was an insulation board that was used for project. You could see someone's imprint on that they had slept there, and we were like doing presentations that day, like midterm, like right next to this perfect body shape of somebody who's like good form for them, but it was awkward. So I remember I pulled 60. I actually pulled 69. I didn't intend for it to be that number, but it was.
How'd you even
I
count that high?
I counted because I was mad. I used anger to fuel my work. My ability to stay up was fueled by anger and by this resentment of these professors, and I'm just gonna show them, I'm gonna show them what I can do because mama didn't raise no bitch. I'm here to, I'm here to perform. I'm here to test myself. And, in the comments section, you were saying something along Navy SEALs do this. Like, this is, at my school, we were forced to, you had to, in order to get accepted into the College of Architecture for second year, you had to, as a freshman, take this, career course test. It was a career test, but it's actually, there's people hired on full time at the campus that their whole job is to analyze this test because it's a really good one. And it not only does that, but it also tests how truthful you are on it. I don't know how the hell they do that, but they did.
They guess.
And then you have to set up a meeting with them in person to discuss what your options were. We did this I think we stopped doing it when I became a teacher there, or a GPTA. But when I was going in, you had to do that. And the reason I didn't know at the time was because we had a 10% pass rate. So we had 200 people that we started with in my class, and only 26 graduated, at least on time. I don't know about the ones that graduated after. And then only 11 of them came back, and only one of them, no, 2 of them were males, actually, mostly females, so represent for them. But it was, what I was going to go say was, for me, I identify with that since my number 2 choice on that career test was military. Yeah, that's the whole point. I was pushing myself in that way, using my anger, using that, and a lot of people didn't need that. I did, but a lot of people got by. They didn't have to do any all-nighters. They could relax and still control themselves in their schedule in a way to where they could push themselves to do the things they had to do without the stress that I had to endure, because we're just all built different, we're not all the same. For me, most of those all-nighters were done between second and third year. Not so much, only 4 or 5 of them were done in grad school. That's because I learned something in that period, and that was critical for me to move on in my career. So it's not like if you're asking the question of are you not respecting yourself by doing this? No, you're choosing what you're doing. Every choice you do, that's up to you. When you get into school, you're an adult at that point. You're making your own choices. If you're choosing to stay up late or you're choosing not to, that's on you, and you're doing that out of your own volition. That's something that you're doing because you respect yourself enough to have control over your life, control over what you're doing. Satisfaction is different. You know, satisfaction in your work, satisfaction in your life, your work balance. I had no satisfaction from my work-life balance. I think most of us didn't. We were all a little upset, but we were making that choice because we all knew what we would get out of it at the end. You know, we would get to do what we were all meant to do, what we were all, you know, good at doing. And that's how it is with any job. You know, it may or may not require the level of intensity that we had to go through, but you know, it's not like I like it. I think there's better alternatives, but at the same time, there's a lot of lessons that were learned through that failure. And I think, like you were saying, I think that you're right, that you learned how to pick up. You learned from that, you know, engineering course. Funny enough, same thing. I took an engineering course, failed, and like, yeah, not for me.
Yeah, they do that to you.
But yeah, without that failure, you wouldn't know who you were. And then once you did accomplish all of those things, like once you're like 40 all-nighters in, you're kind of set on it. Like you're kind of married to it at that point. Because if you're not, you're kind of, that's a waste of time. Like I at that point, I had built so much confidence in myself and built so much of myself up in what I was doing, so much momentum in what I was doing. I couldn't go back at that point. Like, I don't know about you guys, but that's just how I looked at it. Like, so.
Interesting points from everyone, and I guess to like put it in words is, I guess we have to understand what our true value is and what is my quality and not just my quantity. So, like, what is it that I can produce and how can I produce it effectively and in a way where I will succeed and not put myself in a way that I'm devaluing who I am and what I do.
Yeah.
Right. And a part of it is a mystery because it isn't spoken about enough of even what everybody makes, what your job is, what you literally do, not what is the title, and how quickly, how efficient, how much guidance is needed versus how much is independent, because our job or our lack of pay now is kind of because we have to ask so many questions and bother other people. You know, like I have to, I mean, I don't spend a bunch of time asking my boss, but at least for me, I'll have some task on my project and I'll attempt it, but I haven't drawn like a bar or a kitchen or a optimal dining layout or parking or whatever it is. But I'll take a swing at it and then I'll pass it over and it'll be just all red. But I get feedback on it. If I just walked up and was like, what do I do? He'd be like, well, I can't just like tell you everything. And part of it is figuring it out on our own. And I just come back to everybody's perspective is so valid, it's not even funny. And school is often for one type of person or only a few instead of trying to actually grow. Because also, like, for us, why does it stop and why is there such a big split of, okay, finally I'm out of school, I'm never going back? And so many practicing architects don't teach, and they are busy, but that's also time management. Busy is a lack of management. Like, everybody's busy, and I'm really trying to pinpoint those areas of where did our education lack. And a big thing that popped up this evening was these soft skills, these more social skills that, yes, if you are actually at school and you are somewhat social, you can kind of learn. But the school itself is not structured at all to actually teach us that. You know, they had minimal social events, but also were very time demanding. It was a whole other thing instead of all being woven in. It's like, why are we even separating design from construction? Because you have to build it in some capacity. And yes, we build models, but is it really productive to have like a second, third, or even fourth year do like a 80-story skyscraper that won't ever even be close to realized? Or can we actually have these building blocks up? And I just found in trying to find, especially in my first job out of school, which is the whole point of education, that whole notion of, well, we actually can't gain the wisdom, we have to earn it. But if we can partner with people who have it, they're supposed to pass it on to us. That's education. Being at a school in a room is not. And yet we have to go through this show, which has its skills, it has its, and if anything, it shows, yeah, you can stick with something for 4 years, because a building, I mean, I've been at my job now a year, almost and a half now, and we're still, like, I'm just now in permitting on 2 of them, but both at the same time. So I'm like, but like, but, because like they're 2 pretty complex restaurants. But I've found school to be incredibly lacking, even in like the public speaking portion. Like, yes, we do present, but no one talks about how to actually present well at all. They might tell you, say this, say that, but the art of public speaking, the art of rhetoric, persuasion, but even the craft of how it's spoken, the tone, the pitch, the timbre, and of course the pacing. That's crucial. Because
no, I was just going to say, I think though that is the point of having like these intermediate presentations, right?
Right.
You're going to have people in your class or in other classes that are much stronger than you are with presenting. And I think being thrown in the pit is kind of a nice way of, if you make friends with these people, then they're going to want to help you, right? Or if you're going to, you can ask help of like, how do I bring this across? Or of like, hey, what should I say, right? And I think, I mean, for me, at least personally, like I helped quite a few of my friends out just because I knew that I was a bit better of a more, I would say, a more confident speaker in front of people than they are, right? And I think that's kind of the nice part. Yeah, I totally agree. Schools should definitely be teaching that, especially in architecture. It's so important, right? But I would say, though, that being thrown in the fire and watching peers present and nitpicking things that you like from each separate person really, for me personally, helped with, with my game and presenting.
Right. And my kind of point is that is forced to happen organically. It happens or it doesn't, but education is supposed to guide you towards that. And yes, you might be thrown in it, but I'd probably argue people more predisposed to that kind of analytical thinking. But then those are probably the people we want, the ones who can be more intuitive or go-getter. Because I mean, I don't know about y'all, it's probably the same feeling, but I can't bring my boss any question unless I've searched it for like a long time to make sure there's nothing super obvious, because I don't want to sound dumb. That's a part of it, but that's more ego, but still just more being resourceful about it. And like, because our job also is, I don't know, but I'll figure it out, you know. Or, oh yeah, I've done it before, not exactly this way, but it's close. And I think all of us sharing those experiences of how we've even gone through our early careers can help others, because it's such an unknown, and we got some great answers on how everybody got that first job. And as each person speaking, I'm like, man, I have so many other questions for you, and like, maybe not exactly for every person, but also I have a question that I want every person to answer. And frankly, if I was able to ask every person every question that popped up, we'd be here until all of us just died of exhaustion. You know, so being very like critical of what I'm trying to ask, in poor objectively, I feel it did go a bit off course, but it went from us speaking about Boom, that first job, it's brand new, that experience, and then juxtaposing school, and I felt that discussion really pulled out the great parts of school and the great parts of now. And do they have to be separate? And and is it the structure of it? It can't just be the tax money. You know, like, there has to be some kind of intent or organization that must happen to actually set up a pipeline of perpetual growth, instead of, okay, 4 years, I cashed a check, thanks, bye. Like, my job now, I do feel I'm fostered as a future architect, because he understands I'm not going to be there forever, and actually says that a bunch to every person. You know, wherever you go, just be the best architect possible. And that's more being as creative, but then as real as possible. And like, what's the actual timeline, budget, structure, about everything, and being able to actually deliver on that realness, you know. And all of us, like, we might only have 2 to 3 to 5 years each, but that's what, there's 8, 7 people on the call. I mean, we've been on 30 years of projects, 50, 60, you know, like, on a, you know, so us just keeping it up here, it's not helping yourself either, you know. And I'm really trying to find that narrative lane to walk down to extract these stories out, because I don't think it's just like blaming college, because college has a bunch of amazing things, and it isn't just about blaming now either, because we actually build shit, you know. So I want these panels to continue. I'm gonna absorb all of this and craft further questions. I'll probably have more group at first, just to get overall feedback, spitballing, because also one-on-one can be like pressure or intense, or like, oh, there's like, I don't know, you know. But this is like a bit more like free flowing, but I won't just like end it out now. But does any closing thoughts by anybody?
I have something. So
Oh,
just by
snap.
looking at the not
Oh,
anything
snap.
that
I'm
we
scared.
can't see, the Twitch chat, just from looking at the Twitch chat, we did go over like some issues that were some pinch points for a lot of people, and you can tell there's like some built up emotions around some of these topics that we're talking about, and they definitely need some more room for going over. And the more that I've been thinking about this is that another strategy that we could use this podcast for, and I don't think we've ever brought this up before, but debates.
I
Because
love that.
there's,
I'm in.
Let's go.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Oh, we
I know
you
you're in,
are.
Luca.
Yeah, of
Jeez.
course. No, I'm down. I'm down. Let's go. Let's go. So
Yeah, because
what do you
there's
think?
opinions. I mean, this talk of like giving ourselves respect in school, and whether or not there should be this toxic attitude about going about school, and should we be doing all nighters, or should we be pushing ourselves to the point of tipping over our mental state? Which some people would say no, some people would say it's worth it.
Is it
I
necessary?
mean, is it even necessary? So
Yeah,
there's
these are all good because I can probably argue both sides.
Exactly,
So we can
exactly.
definitely set that
Yeah,
up.
I
could do
mean,
the
I'd be
same.
down.
It's
To the individual, honestly.
so give me some couple days, and I think I'm gonna put together some kind of program that we can
Let's
go
go,
off of
Tristy.
that.
Let's go.
I know we have a few things on the schedule already, but to our 10 viewers in Twitch chat, we do this every week,
and
and we try and we keep this going. And we already have a running list of topics to go over, and I know you guys have your opinions too. And I kind of like how we peeled off for a bit to address some of the Twitch stuff. So I think
Right.
that'll be a good model to follow moving forward.
Right.
Absolutely.
That audience interaction,
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I agree. I guess one thing, us as professionals, like now that we're in the professional, like we can call ourselves professionals. And to all other professionals watching this, like, what is our responsibility now as professionals for the ones that are in school? And I know we're doing this podcast to help them out, but also help professionals out and whatnot. But what is our role now? Like, what should we be doing, and how can we help?
Yeah. For example, my boss takes a lot of initiative to be educational because he'll intentionally hire young people, and whether or not they stay at the firm or not, it's up to them. But he always takes in young people to teach them, and he'll teach them Revit or whatever to do the job. But investing, the way he sees it, is that if you invest in the youth, the firm itself will get something back, especially if they decide to stay within the firm. I mean, you're kind of growing.
You're
that
birthing
person.
babies. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're producing a child of architecture that will hopefully go on to make your firm even better. So he has a super healthy way of looking at that, and that's why he brought me in the first place. This is my second job. The first job, not so much, but yeah, I mean, that's something that we should keep in mind. If we, as Hoser Squad podcast, do make our way into the career realm off the podcast and into the business building.
Like imagine how cool it would be if, like, I mean, I know some firms kind of do this already, but what if firms sponsored studios? Many design build studios or any sort of studios. Like, how dope would that be?
HKS Line does that, and that was one of my most memorable studios.
Yeah, that was definitely one of my favorite too.
Yeah, there are
Yeah,
a few firms here and there that do that. But I think Monty was saying something earlier, and it like popped in my head, like why we were talking about like, do you even need 4 years of, what we did in our schooling for undergrad, let's say, versus let's say 3 years of schooling and maybe 4 years of schooling, the third year being a completely remote firm experience for each person. Like each firm has to meet a quota to be considered an architectural firm, and you have to take in these many students per year to push them through certain projects, and everyone on staff will understand like, hey, you're gonna have to teach these kids, but they're there to learn and they have to do it. I wonder how far that would really enrich the experience for people, because I know in Europe a ton of kids do study abroad programs where they work in the professional field that they're trying to get a degree in. And I think that would be so enriching and way better than even what 1 year of schooling could teach you, because you have that professional experience in your belt. I feel like, man, if that could be the model for schooling, to have 1 year of professional experience versus, not, that'd be amazing.
Or do we even need the actual schooling at all? What if like firms had their own academies for
Right.
young people to go to and learn from there?
Yeah.
Ooh, you gotta be careful with that though.
No.
Am I gonna get murdered?
Apprenticeships
It might
can last
straight
a while.
up. It might just be like a technical school at that point.
Yeah.
No.
We're gonna teach you
But-
Revit
but-
here.
This is where
it
the
would be
debate
the
can start,
firm,
because
then.
I'll go off.
But yeah,
That could be a
I mean-
debate question.
Yeah. What would that debate question be specifically?
Well, should schools continue on this theory conception model, or should it become more technical? I know that some schools offer this program called iPal. There's a school in San Diego called New School that offers that, and basically it's like you'll be licensed by the time you graduate, but it is a longer program. It's about 6 years. Though, is that at that point too technical, too professional? Is it like more preparing you how to be like a Revit monkey? Or I mean, you'll become a professional and licensed architect by the end. Though, would you miss out on some of that stuff that we did learn at UTA, that it's more about design concepts, design theory, tying it back to some of previous architecture models we've seen, like, because I think that's important as well, even if not every building we build is like Sagrada Familia, because that just like a lot of the architecture in the United States is very different compared to what we see in school. So like at what point like to answer your question, like the debate question could be, how technical should schools be allowed to be?
Yeah. Well, that might be a bit open-ended.
Yeah, that's why it's a debate question.
Well, isn't like debate for like school should have no internship, nothing at all. We are just about the thinking. Versus no, we should have some kind of apprenticeship or trade or practical. Well, like we aren't a trade school.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's definitely a point of discussion. One that we honestly don't have any power in. So,
What are you saying?
Not
No
now.
power?
Not now. Maybe.
well,
40
we
years
have.
from
I mean,
now.
we have some power, but you. I don't know what you would have to do. Like, I feel like there was one professor at UTA that really stirred the pot, and we all know who that was. And
I know.
granted, True. Some of the things that he did were very anti what the old school professors would have wanted to do. And some of the things that he did were just really cringe, even for us students to go through. But if I think back to it, do I respect him? Kind of. But did he teach us something? I would say absolutely. Right? I think, I don't know. That's why I want to become a professor at one point in life, to really bring forward that change, hopefully, in a school system. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the proper steps to even change the system, because everyone that you talk to is like, oh yeah, this is the path that you have to walk to become an architect, to be in this field. You have to go through the struggles, the same struggles that we went through 50 years ago.
Right.
This is the same sheet that I did 500 years ago, and you have to go through this thing. I'm like,
it's actually all fake. I haven't done every state actually. It's at least fake in California, because all you have to do is just work for a licensed architect for the equal amount of times that it is school. So it'd be 6 years plus the AXP hours. Those don't count at all towards that. It's just education substitution. So the loophole here is you can actually be a school, academy, whatever non-legal word. If you have that license, you can license anybody. You can license, like you are the school. You, as the architect, are the school, not the building, not the taxes or the institution. So us, we actually have all the power as these future educators. To Juan's question just briefly, I think we have an incredible responsibility to be those educators, and I'll just leave it at that as professionals. I think if we don't educate at all, we just are abandoning any kind of evolution, and I'll just leave.
Oh, I know Ryan.
That there.
I know this guy who's been in our chat.
Who is it?
He would be
nice.
great to have on the podcast.
Yeah, it'd be great to have.
Punk Boy Fresh?
Yeah, it'd be great to have.
Yeah.
Funk Boy
They
Fresh
obviously went
on
to
there.
UTA.
What?
Yeah.
I could deduce that they did go to UTA. So.
Yeah, it seemed like.
I believe he's graduating with me, if I'm not
Awesome.
mistaken.
Congrats
Yeah.
on that, Bunk Boy
And
Fresh.
they've been
Congrats.
holding too many all-nighters.
Yeah. Only
At this
one.
point, he's or female. He's asleep.
Two
I need to head out here soon. But
Right,
how was
right.
y'all's final presentation? Did it go
Yeah.
good?
Oh yeah. Yeah, our talk beforehand definitely improved. I think a logo can say the same thing.
Oh yeah, he definitely changed everything.
Bro,
Actually,
look
We
what
put
you're
the love
still-
in it.
Yeah, you
We
said
put the love in it, Luca.
Let's go,
Just for you.
baby.
I was thinking of Luca one. I took in consideration everything you guys said and
Hell
applied to
yeah.
it. Just
Hell yeah, let's go, baby.
Bro, you
love
thought
that.
of me?
not
You
in the
were
way you
standing up
think.
there thinking of me?
Oh,
Not in the way you think, bro.
That's cute.
It's still
I
cute.
love that. Good job. Then.
Thank you.
Congrats, you guys.
Thanks, guys.
I have
If
one last
if I could go
thing.
back in time
uh-huh.
and have one of those before each jury, oof, how much better.
Oh,
Right.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Oh, yeah.
the whole
That's the goal.
point, to pass on what we would have wanted ourselves.
Yeah.
That's it. And so to put a bow on all of it, some housekeeping, Hoser Squad business of next week, we will most likely have a panel on the. Put it in it.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Put the
next
passage
week, and next week, I'm planning to host a panel about health, just like health tips, and I'm gonna see if I can find any competitions for healthy spaces to use as like a prompt. I'm thinking maybe I can find this prompt and then give it like a month deadline and see what we can produce. But of course, be mindful, we all have full-time jobs, so it doesn't have to be super elaborate. But that's my plan for next week. And I also want to end it on this quote by David Goggins.
Of course.
Of course.
Be more than motivated, be more than driven, become literally obsessed to the point where people think you're fucking nuts.
Because you think he's fucking nuts.
I still find it hilarious that Vanessa's the one pushing David Goggins on all of us.
No, it's golden. I mean, her dad's a Master Chief in the Navy. Come on.
Yeah. It's awesome.
It's in her blood.
Yeah,
Wow.
I'm
Hey,
a
just wanna
crazy
say real
person,
quick-
not scared to admit it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tyler.
Just want to say real quick, thank you
Yeah.
all for being so welcoming.
Thank you,
I know
bro.
It was a little weird at first, but
No, bro.
I-
It was all great.
No, you should have
we
gone to
don't want
UTA.
it.
This is how we are.
Yeah.
yeah.
We
Well,
have,
I'm rooting for that sponsorship. I know we trash talked DTA pretty hard, but you know, maybe I'll offer one from Tech if we can get one.
That'd be cool.